Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Scout 6316, 8.8 for 6,000.
Scout 6316, North Hill Approach, going to maintain 3,000, number 1 for the right.
3,000, Scout 6316.
Redwood 811, going to maintain 4,000. Airport's open to Fox 1.
We take you higher and higher and higher. You feel it over and over again. We take you higher and higher and higher. You feel it over and over again.
6 Roman Carefly runway heading runway 5. Let's take off.
Check!
And we're ready for takeoff. Sit back, relax. It's time to travel with Cosmic Passport. Spaced Out Weekend presents Elizabeth Anglin's Cosmic Passport, a 1-hour warm-up of news, stories, thoughts, and ideas to captivate your mind. You can follow us at spacedoutradio.com.
Now 20 years have passed us by, and we look back and count the time. Burning like the summer sun when the world was young. As I lay staring from the ground, and 7 trumpets wait to sound.
And now, here's Our Lady of Flight, Cosmic Passport with Elizabeth Anglin.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio Weekend. You're here with the host before the host. This is Elizabeth Anglin coming on before James Tyson tonight, who's going to be interviewing Nancy Talbot of BLT Research Team, Inc. They research the crop circles. Oh, those crop circles. We're here on Spaced Out Radio. You can find us at spacedoutradio.com. You can join Spaced Out Radio as a SOR, Spaced Out Radio Space Traveler, on the front page. Click on that, look at that. If you want to get super cool stuff, I say go there and do that thing. And we have lots of fun things. But tonight, listen to us first on Spaced Out Radio. Join the chat room. We have a chat room on Spreaker, on spacedoutradio.com. We have a chat room on Revolution Radio through freedomslips.com. And if you are already an SOR Space Traveler, we have a Facebook chat room as well, which is a ton of fun. We expect to have a ton of fun because, sometimes we need to have fun. If you're a UFO researcher, a crop circle researcher who does anything with aliens, sometimes you just feel like people want to get in your space and make it hard for you. And that's what's happened with tonight's guest, Nancy Talbot, who has been doing some research into crop circles and doing some research into what the White House knows. And all of a sudden, the gods of Facebook made the BLT Research Team website go away. Oh, no, not just the gods of Facebook, but they did take the Facebook postings away, and only the Facebook. But BLT Research Team, which is her website, their website is www.bltresearch.com. It's very cool. It's very scientific looking. There are published papers, professional consultants field reports, laboratory reports. They do a lot of data collection, a lot of testing. And you know what? For something that is so anomalous, that is, you can't tell when, where it's going to show up or why most of the time, that's what you got to do. Collect data. Collect data until you figure it out. I have personally seen a crop circle, but I have never been in a crop circle, and I haven't seen a fresh crop circle. In 2012, in June, I went to Uffington Whitehorse in England, which is the big white horse on the hill, and I walked up over the top of the hill to Uffington Whitehorse, and down at the bottom of it was this very beautiful growing in crop circle that was so ornate. It was kind of like the samurai throwing star design with a little bit more Celtic oomph to it. It wasn't very big, but man, the interior design was very pretty, and the grass had already started to grow back in the middle of it. So it looked like a nice embossed wheatgrass crop circle. But I stayed up on the hill because, of course, down below it was a farmer's field. And then I went down to the juncture of the field below the hill, and there were sheep in one of the fields, a big group of sheep, and then there was the wheatgrass field at the bottom, where I assume it's wheatgrass, could have been oatgrass. And I just love critters so much. I didn't stand on top of the car and try to get a picture of the crop circle from down below. I ended up talking to the sheep, because you know how sheep are. If you go up to them and go, bah, they all go, bah, back. Well, silly me, animal communicator. Oh, look, crop circle. Oh, look, sheep. But that's my one and only run-in with a crop circle. I did meet a lot of crop circle researchers back in my early research days, and those were the researchers with Colin Andrews, and a gentleman from Scotland taught me how to dowse. So my initial dowsing experience came about through hanging out with crop circle researchers for a few days. It was a lot of fun. I especially loved Colin Andrews because that year, I believe it was 1991, he had a video that he was taking on tour of a very small UFO that was in the middle of the day, sort of floating through fields that had crop circles in them. And you could tell that it wasn't a balloon or something else, because this thing, avoided a farmer on a tractor, and then the farmer on the tractor saw it and then stopped his tractor and waited for it to cross the field and then started up his tractor again. And the farmer's reaction is priceless. It's kind of like, he doesn't freak out. He doesn't stop farming. He just stops his tractor for a little bit until the small UFO gets out of his field. Truly a UFO, unidentified flying object on film in a crop circle field. And anyway, Colin Andrews, one of the original crop circle researchers, was hilarious when he gave it, because he used to talk about what the skeptics would say, and then he'd show a picture or show the film, and then he'd say, right, moving on now. So I have a lot of love. I was told by John Mack I should go see the crop circles. I never went. So here you are. You're stuck with me. You're host before the host going, well, I know a little bit about crop circles, but I have never actually been in any big ones or done any research. And I've heard that it is great stuff. But moving on now, we're going to go to a little bit about the government conspiracy. And the government conspiracy of UFOs, the government conspiracy surrounding crop circles, basically the disinformation aspect of crop circles. If there is any one field, pun intended, field, get it, crop circle field, okay, pun intended, any one field other than UFOs or aliens that the government seems most intent on debunking, It's crop circles. And the media is completely in on it, in the fact that you have these people who claim to hoax crop circles going out and taking videos of themselves in already been made crop circles, pretending that they are the ones pushing down the wheat, pushing down the grass, and that they can do these amazing patterns with perfection in just a few minutes overnight. And there have been some really good shows that have been on about crop circles. One, I believe, I can't remember if they were from Rochester Polytechnic or Cornell. One of the New York techie schools went out and tried to make a crop circle overnight with grad students and students from the mechanical and physical engineering sciences. And they had to have in amazing lights. They couldn't make, and this was not rapeseed seed or any one of those crops that's really hard to bend. They were in a regular, fairly bendy crop. They had the hardest time making the most simple design, and even then it wouldn't really have passed for anything but man-made. They had footprints everywhere. They had all sorts of markings that showed that there had been people present, and there had been people trying to figure out what the heck to do, and they had a big arc lights out over the field so they could figure out what they were doing and how they could do it. And so this idea that's been circulated since the mid-90s, probably by the government, but especially by the media in England especially, that, these two drunk guys left the pub and went out and made a crop circle, is absolutely ludicrous. There's absolutely no way that, just Joe Schmo and his friend Bud could go out, and Bud and Joe could make an amazing, large, complicated crop circle without arc lights and a team and a lot of equipment and drawing a lot of attention overnight in a farm field in usually quite quiet England in the countryside. So, but yet, for whatever reason, when the media says it, I experienced this when I was in England and I went to Uffington Whitehorse. If the media says it, and you go into a pub, which is where people meet, it's not, it's where people meet and they have dinner and they eat pudding and they also drink and they watch soccer games, and communities get together there. So if you go to where people are in the pub and you ask them, do you believe that crop circles are made by some non-human intelligence, they all laugh at you and they say, oh no, they disproved that. Those two guys go out, these hoaxers go out and they make them. And 90% of the people that you meet, or 80 or 90, in my experience, because I was daft enough as an American to go out and ask the question, do you believe that, what do you think about crop circles? How do you think they're made? They were all saying, oh, no, they were made by hoaxers. Don't you know that? They've been disproved long, long ago. It's very easy for some reason, especially in a country like England, where they have a lot of crop circles, for people just to believe what the media says. Yeah, Joe Schmo and his friend Bud left the pub, went out with their brooms and a board, and made crop circles. I think what you're going to find out tonight with tonight's guest is that they are way more complicated. What happens with the crop itself when it is bent, and not mutilated, but bent into beautiful designs, happens at the cellular level. That there are things that happen with the soil, there are things that happen with magnetics, there are things that happen, there are even things that happen with people's brains when they go into crop circles. I have a friend, Masahiro Kata. He does a brain wave imaging software, much like the one that James can tell you about. I'll ask him later. And he was one of the first developers of this brainwave imaging software. He's had it since the 90s. And one of the reasons why he developed it was to go in a crop circle with it and see what crop circles did to people's brainwaves. And it was very, very interesting. Now he uses it for big art installations where he plays music and he sees, what different types of music do to people's brain waves, and then teaches meditation, and then looks at how meditation changes brain waves, but he puts it up on a big screen. So it becomes like art. But Masahiro Kata is a nice Japanese person who's been hanging around crop circles for a long time, and a friend of mine. Actually, he just got back to the United States, so I might see him next month or see him pretty soon. He's been in Berlin and all in Russia. Yeah, I'm kind of a crop circle groupie because, no, I haven't yet been inside a crop circle, but I know people who have, and I can drop their names. Woohoo! All right, that being said, let's get on to the government conspiracy. I don't know why the government would want to conspire to say that crop circles are man-made. I mean, unless they're tied with UFOs, which is the big deal. And I think they are tied with UFOs, especially after seeing the Colin Andrews film of the UFO sort of floating through the crop circle field, the small, tiny UFO. They seem to be tied with UFOs. But unless the government knows that they are, what's the big deal? Why do you have to pretend that, people do it? Joe and Bud from the pub go out with their board, and they do these amazing things. Yeah, right. Moving on. I'm going to move on to something that the government wasn't able to cover up this week. That's in the news. It came out today in Open Minds. Now, this is a UFO or two UFOs or three UFOs seen in proximity to the government. And its UFOs hover over Washington, D.C. for more than 2 hours. And this is at www.openminds.tv. And it is a story by Mr. Marsh, Roger Marsh, who is a UFO writer and content developer. He's director of communications for the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, and he manages their media contact rights and permissions. So he's writing on Open Minds for MUFON. Some person did a really good job. The person that he got pictures from, or MUFON got pictures from, did a really good job of documenting this by drawing pictures of what they saw. I didn't get a camera out and take pictures, but drew very, very good pictures. And here's the story. UFOs hover over Washington, D.C. for more than 2 hours. And I'm giving this story a lot of credence because I've seen this happen in Boston on February 19th, 1990. And the UFOs were called looping fireballs, but yet they were hovering. They weren't looping anywhere. Anyway, here's the story. A District of Columbia witness reported watching two orb UFOs exchanging plasma while a craft appeared and hovered for more than 2 hours, according to testimony in case 79086 from the Mutual UFO Network Witness Reporting Database. The witness was house-sitting and stepped out into the front porch at 7:40 p.m. on August 30th, 2016, when the incident began. I was just relaxing and enjoying the nice evening, the witness said. I was looking out over the horizon to the west, over top a couple of buildings, and straight ahead of me, just over the buildings, I noticed what at first I thought to be a star, but then realized it was a bit too bright, and then I thought, well, okay, it must be Venus. At this point, Venus blinked off and on twice, and I immediately knew that something was not right. I will now, for clarity, refer to Venus as the primary orb. Almost immediately after blinking off and on, a secondary orb came out from behind the primary orb. So now I'm staring at two orbs, and I'm shocked, and my mind is not processing this because I just don't know what this is. The witness went on to describe the orbs. The orbs appeared to be visually closer than they actually were, as if I was looking through an invisible pair of binoculars. The two orbs began to gyrate and move as if vying for some particular position in relation to one another, like two boxers bobbing and weaving in a ring. I had a very distinct feeling from that they were trying to get something accomplished. Once they found their positions, both orbs proceeded to emit to one another some kind of plasma energy. I'm using the term plasma because it's the only word I can think of that can best describe what I was seeing. This plasma met between them and joined the two orbs together. This lasted a couple of seconds, and then each orb took back the plasma it emitted, and they were no longer connected. At that point, the primary orb stretches out plasma to the secondary orb. They connect once again, and then the plasma from that retracts back to the primary orb. This is something that I've seen, this is an aside, that I've seen myself, and I saw it on February 19th in 1990 over Boston, over the flight path toward Logan Airport. There were more than just two ships in this situation. It looked like there was a mothership with a lot of little ships around it, but from time to time what would happen is there would be this plasma exchange between this larger sort of triangular mothership and then these little ships. And sometimes little ships would stay in proximity to the mothership, and sometimes they would be absorbed and seem to go into what appeared to be a mothership. And it went on for quite a while. I noticed it just after 9 o'clock. My understanding is it might have been something over an hour. But of course, the newspaper described this as, it was just looping fireballs. Now, I had never heard of a looping fireball, and what kind of looping? I'm looking at this for a situation. I had a skylight in my bedroom window. I had a balcony bedroom kind of thing, and I'm looking through the skylight, and I can see the situation going on perfectly through my skylight in Salem, Massachusetts, as I'm looking south toward Boston, and I'm thinking, no, it can't be looping fireballs because they would move. They would go somewhere. And this mothership and these little ships were basically staying in the same position in the sky. They would move up a little bit, move down in straight lines, and then they would exchange plasma. So I give a lot of credence to what this person is saying because I've seen something similar. Anyway, going on with the story in Washington, here's what our witness says. As if things could not get any stranger, the secondary orb now sprays plasma at a slightly upward angle toward the primary orb. Imagine a garden hose tilted at an upward angle and seeing the individual water streams come down. These were plasma streams coming down onto the primary orb. When these streams hit around the primary orb, they formed a perfect circle of dots of red light, with a primary orb centered in the middle. After about 3 seconds, the circle of red dots disappeared, but the primary orb was still there. Now I'm absolutely perplexed, and I don't know what I'm seeing, and I rubbed my hands on my eyes for about 2 seconds, and then I pulled them away, and there was a craft, UFO, where the orbs had been. And from where I was, it looked like it could be disc-shaped or cigar-shaped, and the color of the craft itself seemed to be matching the background sky, and there were lights around the edges that blinked randomly, white and a variety of other colors that I could not determine at that point. Again, this sounds to me like the morphing craft. One of the things that I did notice as I was looking for a long time on February 19th, 1990, is that the triangular sort of mothership did seem to morph. Things seemed to morph in. And the colors of this were red and orange and white and a little bit of gold, and they kept, kind of strobing. The plasma, red, white, orange, and gold, was changing. So it looked like there was energy around whatever the craft was, but it also looked like the craft was changing shape, which is very, very odd. Changing and morphing. So there's a little bit of this and this. Morphing going on. The witness goes on in Washington to say, as soon as I realized it was a craft, it began to ascend slowly, as if going up in an elevator. It then stopped and hovered there with lights blinking. It did not move at all, as if it was sitting on a shelf. I'm staring at it, and then I see a bright flash of light to my left, and I look up to the left, and there is a cloud. And as I look at it, a bright flash of circular light shines down through it. This flash happens twice more, each flash about a second long, with 3 seconds in between each one. I'm looking up the craft, then the cloud, and wondering if these are connected. The flashes did not look like lightning to me, and the weather that evening did not call for rain or storms. Because I was caring for someone, I needed to go back in the house, and I went back inside at about 7:45 p.m., and I was able to find some old and barely used binoculars, and I went back out several times to look through the binoculars, and I could see very random patterns and colors. Because of the poor quality of the binoculars, it was hard to get any more detail than the random patterns of lights, and sometime between 8:30 and 9:30 p.m., I saw an airplane coming from the north. It did not alter its path. It flew a little to the east between me and the craft, closer to me, and a little lower than the UFO, and it may have been a passenger jet preparing to land at National Airport. Whoever was piloting that plane had to have seen the UFO hovering there. And that was something that happened with me. This is an aside. That was something that happened with me in Boston. The UFO, or the crafts that I was looking at, were in the flight path to Logan Airport, and lower than the UFOs and probably closer to me, they were flying in for landing. Several passenger jets were flying in for landings, sort of lower than and beneath what I was looking at and considering to be craft. So that's interesting as well. And you just got to wonder, do those pilots report what they're seeing, or are they mum? Is mum the word? I think mum is the word. In any case, our Washington witness of August 30th goes on. At 10 p.m., before I went to bed, I checked to see if the craft was still there. It was. It had moved maybe a few hundred feet to the north. And so it's basically still in the same position. Some clouds were starting to come in, but I could see the lights flashing. My observation point for the sighting was about 0.5 to 0.75 mile east of the craft. I estimate it was hovering over the area of Washington International School. This craft has been in view for 2 hours and 15 minutes and in very close proximity to the Washington National Cathedral and the U.S. Naval Observatory. And the witness believes that there are additional witnesses. I find it hard to believe that I could be the only person to have witnessed this. As a last note, the next morning I went out onto the patio just in time to see a formation of 3 helicopters. There might have been more, but maybe I just missed them, flying to the left of where I'd been observing the craft the night before. They were flying quite low and right towards the area where the craft had been hovering. They were identical to one another, and I did not see any end numbers on any of them where they flew by. It is not a helicopter flight path. So, what he seems to be saying is there might have been some idea that at some point this craft landed. And this is something that we found when I was researching alien abduction with John Mack. We found a person who on that night of February 19th, 1990, was compelled to drive her car up from Boston to Saugus, Massachusetts, which was basically south of where I was in Salem, and I was looking south toward Logan Airport. And she found a back road into the swamp, the open land around the swamp in Saugus, Massachusetts, and basically drove in and drove up to a very, very large craft that had landed in an open clearing in the swamp area in Saugus. And she had a whole experience that she was regressed from because she lost her memory from the time that she drove up, saw the lights of the craft, saw beings and probably people around it, but then she was regressed for the rest of it, and that's her regression. But I didn't know her then. I met her in 1992, and it was just so bizarre to me that we had some experience of the same craft. I didn't get in my car and drive down from Salem. I stayed exactly where I was, but for some reason, this particular craft was, something called to her and she got in her car and she just started driving. And so it was like close encounters of the fourth, the fifth, the whatever kind for her. But if you're thinking about black helicopters, what does the government know? Why are they flying over low in helicopters? Do they think that this craft or these crafts landed and something happened there? And are they being saying nothing, nada? No, it's looping fireballs that hang in the air for 2 hours. Why? Because they have so much energy, so much kinetic energy that they can just be bright and loop and do all sorts of stuff and just stay there for a long, long time. Yeah, right. Moving on now. So the government, government is definitely an issue. My labs, definitely an issue. I hear so many things now. Back when I was doing research, I was told not to read extra stuff. I was told just to, go through my own experiences and document them. And as my life has progressed and I've tried to look at things that are going on with my labs and the government, some of the things that I know about come from other abductees or experiencers. Some of the things come from remote viewing. But I'll tell you what, by and large, it's a bit like Scully and Mulder in the X-Files when you try to pin down what the government is doing with UFOs or what my labs are or who's doing what and why are people getting taken. In my book, Experience Memoirs of an Abducted Childhood, one of the most traumatic experiences I had was when I was abducted from a friend's basement with my friend, and her parents were on alert because there had been a mysterious death of a young man with a hole. He ended up with a hole in his head and no weapon that could have made it, and it looked like it was cauterized. So it was a bit like a cattle mutilation on a human, but this was in 1993 before people really knew anything about that or it had been widely publicized. So anyway, I was spending the night at their house, and we were both abducted from the living room where we were sleeping on this huge circular couch. And we had police out looking for us and people out looking for us, and then we were put back while they were outside of the house looking outside for us. And we didn't remember any of it. And then they were open with us about what happened with this kid who had died the week before, that something had happened to him that was anomalous. And he had come back with a hole in his head, naked, put in his bedroom, left on his floor. My feeling about that event, very strongly, was that it was a My Labs situation, or there was a tremendous amount of government interference in that situation. Because on the night that I was abducted with my friend, and my father took off, he had to drive 20 to 30 minutes to the house of my friend to go look for me because her father called him and to come look for us. While he was gone, these two men in suits showed up at my house, and they went through my room, and they went through all my dream journals and my writing, and any mention that I had of this boy or anybody else that I saw in dreams or anything that they thought was suspicious, they took it and they kept it. And I later asked a friend, I never saw my journals again. I later asked a friend who is in the FBI, who's a forensic FBI scientist. I said, would it be that they would never return my journals? And he said, oh no, they weren't FBI. I said, but they said they were FBI. He said, oh no, if they were FBI, they would have had to fill out triplicate paperwork and leave you with a pink copy. And as soon as their investigation was over, they would have returned your journals to you. Guess what? Nobody returned no freaking journals. And I didn't see these men because I was in the midst of being abducted, but my stepmother did. And my things were gone. My room had been gone through. And if you've ever been if you've ever been a female who's a junior in high school, you really don't want people that you don't know going through your journals or your diaries, because, among the other stuff, there's like stupid writings to this lead singer of Duran Duran, if it's 1983, and, all of your childhood, famous people crushes, among all the other stuff. So it's quite embarrassing that somebody would take those journals and not return them and read them. Oh my gosh. But, I've looked at it. I've tried to do remote viewing on it. And since I became a remote viewer and since I became a reader, I've been able to go back and look at other situations that don't have government involvement and aren't covered under some sort of treaty. It seems like there was some sort of treaty between 1947 and 1997 that a lot of my stuff was covered under, with the U.S. government, the USSR, and with the aliens. And this is what I gleaned from doing a lot of remote viewing and asking questions. But if something isn't covered under that, I can pretty much remote view it. I don't have to go through regression anymore. I can bilocate to it and go, oh, that's what that was. Well, for whatever reason, this young man who died, David McRae is his name in the book, every time I try to remote view what happened with him, I find it's a very big, tall, 20-foot tall, 15-foot wide, double wooden door, like something you would find on Capitol Hill, some sort of massive door to some massive assembly room. And there's red tape all over the door, and there's a sign that says not to be opened for 50 years. And we're still within the 50 years, and from the time that the things happened with him. And so when it comes to government stuff, there is a lot of secrecy, not just in the world in terms of documentation, but also, for whatever reason, in the astral plane, in the plane where most psychics, we can go out and we can go, oh yeah, remote view that. Oh yeah, that's that. Okay, yeah. All right, that makes sense. For me, and maybe it's just my programming, and maybe there are other remote viewers out there who can break through this stuff, and if there are, more power to them. I want to come study with you and learn how to do it. It gets really, really hard when I try to remote view what's going on with this stuff, especially with the government interference. But it's there, and it's definitely there. And, I really do believe that organizations like PsyCop, who claim to be scientists but aren't, get some sort of remuneration or have in some way worked with the government to debunk alien abductions, UFOs, that sort of thing, and that they've done a very good job of colluding with the government and setting people up. And I'll address that in Inquiry, which is my next book about working with John Mack, because it appears that, what happened with him with the Harvard Inquiry and with the media was very, very, very much a PsyCop setup that came through MUFON. Not everybody at MUFON can be trusted, but not everybody at MUFON cannot be trusted. So, if you have anything to do with MUFON, if you are an experiencer, an abductee, a contactee, or somebody who's just cited something, or you're a researcher, especially if you're a researcher, I'd say if you're going to be working with MUFON, be very, very careful, because in the case of John Mack, they sent him somebody who came through them from PsyCop in order to tell lies about him and to try to discredit him and to cause him a whole bunch of trouble with Harvard that did not need to happen and wasn't happening on its own without being set up first. So, sneaky stuff, possibly some deaths, but there's a bunch of plausible deniability. You'll never find any connection. One of my best friends, David Duclos, who was out as an experiencer, he was a astronomer, a very, very good amateur astronomer who was one of the only people to build his own university class telescope and the first person to get good pictures of the Horsehead Nebula. He went out and he had been in some major magazines, and he was murdered in 1997. But the whole thing was done with, they never caught the person. There wasn't any proof that he was murdered, but everybody who knew him knew that he was murdered, and they knew who did it because he drowned. And everybody who really knew him knew that he was terrified of water and never went into it above his shins. And his girlfriend is telling the story about how he was so kind and generous that he went to the lake and volunteered to lifeguard her children while they swam. And she's saying this at a memorial with 80 of his best friends who all know that he never went into water above his shins. Yeah, you don't think we know who killed him. Sorry, honey, we all know. And, if we had proof, we'd do something about it, but we don't. So, but the question is why? She really wanted money, and apparently she got something for doing this. And it appeared to be money, whether it was selling his things or there was also a policeman involved. And, and another of the original abductees died mysteriously of a mysterious heart condition that sometimes you just don't know why it comes on, and it could be a toxin. You can give somebody a toxin that will cause them to develop this particular heart-lung condition. So he could have been poisoned. We're not really sure. So that kind of stuff can happen. If you're a researcher, be really careful. Be really careful that you're not being set up. If you are a writer like myself, you'll have people coming to you asking you questions, and sometimes you may not want to answer their questions because they may be setting you up. I had a gentleman come to me who was talking about being violent and doing violent things, and he wanted agreement from me, which would have, if I had in writing in any way agreed with him, would have painted me as a terrorist. And so not only do I not believe in violence, I would not agree with him simply because you're not going to get me writing it down or even appearing to agree with you, because you could be setting me up to be on some terrorist watch list because you're talking about doing violent things against the government. Guess what? If you come to see me and talk to me and talk about doing violent things against the government, I ain't going to say yes, so don't do it. Because it isn't going to happen, and I don't believe in that anyway. But you're not even going. You may not even get an aha. You'll just get a no. I'm careful. I'm careful about the setups. Then you want to be. Oh, look, it's James. I hear his chair and his fingers and his broken computer. Yeah. Yes.
My broken computer.
Your broken computer. He spilled the honey-fied tea all over it.
Honey-fied. Yes, honey-fied. I did.
So.
Hey, if I was to ask you, young woman, what do you think the percentage of crop circles in the UK that are real after investigation by real crop circle people who investigate these things compared to what aren't real?
Well, I haven't read about that, but I would say that real crop circle researchers, if they look at it and they say that it has the cellular changes in the crop structure, because at the bend, if they find those cellular changes, that the cell is actually bent, the cell walls are bent, and the whole entire cell is bent, and it's still growing, it's going to be real, because you can't do that with a board and a chair.
So what are
and
the
if
percentages? Don't avoid the question.
I don't know. I mean, if you have a really small, dinky, ugly crop circle that
crop
it's been
circle.
broken,
Okay.
yeah, then no. It could be Bud and Joe Schmo from the pub making this, 10-foot across circle of broken crop that's been trampled all over. But most of the time, I would say that most of the ones that we see in pictures and that they're researching and finding things in, those are real.
Yeah, it's about 90% are fake.
Who says that?
Nancy Talbot.
She says 90% are fake. Who wants to go out and make 90% of the crop circles?
Don't know.
These people from New York, from the university, had the hardest freaking ass time. Excuse my French. They had the hardest time making one dinky little crop circle overnight. They didn't even finish. So how can 90% be fake? I don't.
It depends. If you only get
really good.
If you only get 4, how about you get 10 a year? 9 of them are going to be fake.
I don't believe it.
Okay.
I think more of them. I think that there are not that many people who are going to go out for no money and be very careful and have big arc lights and do a lot of work in order to make crop circles. You're going to find footprints and everything else.
The one you described is known as the dolphin. The one when you were on the white horse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That crop circle was called the dolphin. You can look that one up.
Is it supposed to be fake? Or
don't know. I know the shape.
The
shape you described, the geometric shape you described. I know it as being that's the dolphin, and you could always look up to see if it was a bogus one.
I don't think it was. It was absolutely the wheat was growing back in the middle of it. Hold on.
Yeah, wheat does that. You can drive over it with a car and it'll grow again.
Yeah, it will grow back.
Hey, you there was one down in Salinas, California. Huge to do about it. There was even a video allegedly from guys the night before seeing all these green flashes in the field, and the next day they came out and it was this lovely big crop circle, and it made the news and everybody was all excited, but literally the neighbors watched the people do the thing for 3 days.
Well,
so
yeah, if the people did it for if they did it
they
for
actually
3
made
days,
it, but it hit the news as being a real one, and the video of all the flashes, that was really exciting, and so the news put the video together and the finished product, and it was the most unique crop circle in that part of blah, blah, blah. And anyway, then the neighbors all came out and said, the other farmers are going, we were watching them do it. It was like, so, it wasn't really a beam of light or a ball of light coming down like the ones out in that Robert gets out in Holland.
Yeah, no, it'd have to be a beam of light. It'd have to be quick. You go to bed at night and your crop is fine, and there's like one quick flash of light, and then you wake up and you've got a big old honking crop circle. Plus, I really think that no person can do the cellular changes that they see in the real ones, and if they find those, that to me that's a good indication. Yeah, the one I saw was a variation on the dolphin. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. Did you Google the dolphin? Is that what it looked like?
There are lots of different variations on the dolphin, but there's a crop circle rubber stamp that someone did that's very similar to what I saw, and you can buy it on eBay. Crop circle dolphin rubber stamp. So it's that's very, very similar. The other ones I see in the grass, not so much. They're bigger. This was not a very big crop circle, but it was very, very nicely made.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, here we go. There's
crop circle.
There's
dolphin.
Yeah, there's dolphin.
Crop circle dolphin.
Thank you.
It's what, when I arrest people and I try to get their ID, they give me a fake name. Crop circle dolphin. What?
That's my name.
It's my
Don't
name.
wear it out. I'm crop circle dolphin.
Mon fromage est vert. Steve in the chat was asking if there was any crop circles in the southern hemisphere, and there's tons. Whether they're real or not, that's something that would be up to debate. And Nancy's going to come on in about 10 minutes and tell everybody how a layperson could basically tell if a crop circle is real or fiction, because they heat up. They heat up so quickly that those little pods, the little joints that are like, especially the one just below the head, the moisture in there will actually boil and explode. But to do that, you have to get like 600 or 700 degrees. But the grass itself isn't burnt. There's a number of other things that just... There's
definitely cellular changes that take things more than a board and brooms.
Oh, yeah.
That you can find.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. So now that I'm an expert in crop circles, no, I'm not.
Yes.
No. In fact, Nancy Talbot, there are people out there who just rail on her that she's some kind of mumbo jumbo. It's that, again, disinformation. Nancy has never come out and said aliens do this. She says it's energy, just balls of energy. So,
and that they're formed. Well, I saw a video back in the day in 91. There was another video that Colin Andrews had that was just like, the big flash of energy that didn't take very long. And then the next day there was a crop circle. I mean, you didn't see any ships, like you didn't see craft or anything like that, just a big, lights. And then there's a crop circle, so... And
honestly, if you think about it, they're actually... Like, nature itself makes some really good crystals and snowflakes, and they all have a design to it. So if you think maybe lightning or a ball lightning hits a field, knocks some stuff down, it could very well be in a pattern.
I don't know about that, because people do like the sand lightning, where they put rods in the sand and they end up with the tendrils, the glass tendrils. Mm-hmm. And if you see lightning strike patterns on trees, or see where lightning, usually lightning is keeping moving, like it's trying to keep going, and that seems to be its main function. I don't know if it would.
How about ball
be
lightning?
So symmetrical. I've never seen ball lightning. I don't even know if it's a true. People call a lot of UFOs ball lightning. Mm-hmm. I don't know if ball lightning is an actual thing.
Well, then why would they say it out loud?
Because they gotta say that UFOs don't exist. It's like the looping fireballs and the ball lightning. You know what I'm saying? How many times do you see ball lightning?
7.
7?
I'm guessing. I don't know how many times you see it.
Is that... Do you know anybody
How many
who's
times
seen it?
have you seen it?
I've not seen it at all.
Ball lightning is an unexplained atmospheric electrical phenomenon. A term refers to reports of luminous cervical object, which vary from pea-size to several meters in diameter, through usually associated with thunderstorms. It lasts considerably longer than the split-second flash of a lightning bolt. Many early reports say the ball eventually explodes, sometimes with fatal consequences, leaving behind the odor of sulfur.
It's just the fact that Thor gets mad with you. That's what it is. It's Thor and the Valkyries get mad with you, and then the ball and or whoever it is who has the lightning. One of the gods, you have pissed off one of the gods greatly, and therefore you will see ball lightning just before the moment of your death. And I have not pissed off the gods, so I have not yet seen any ball lightning anywhere.
There was one in
I don't know.
1638 in Devon in England that killed, 4 people died, 60 were injured. 8-foot or 2.4 meter ball of fire was described as striking and entering the church, having nearly destroyed it. Large stones from the church wall.
They pissed off Thor.
Yeah.
all that Christianity.
Yep. And there was British warships have seen it, and then it gets.
Devon.
Yeah. You could also get into the. The Foo Fighters from the Second World War, those balls of energy. But who knows? I'll bring that up with Nancy later.
Bring it up with Nancy. My understanding on the Foo Fighters was that the pilots thought that they were intelligent in some way because they did move in an intelligent-seeming way. But, ask Nancy. So, it's that time. I'll see you guys all later.
You will? Well, thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. See, Elizabeth can hear music that you can't. Maybe she'll jump into the lovely, what do you call it? Chat room? That'd be fun. We get right back with Nancy Talbot.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there. This is your psychic medium, Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on 2 mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. 2 mediums and a large. Heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, news director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
It's time to go live on Spaced Out Weekend.
13, please. Oh, hi, Kevin. Oh, is that the time? Kevin, my friend, don't you find that watch just a little bit loud? Well, I certainly hope our buddy Bumblefoot is playing when we get there. Oh, you stinky big bundle of hair. I said Bumblefoot, not Bigfoot. Oh, it's going to be a long night.
It's time to head to the 13th floor of the old log cabin for Spaced Out Weekend with James Tyson. You can tweet James at James Tyson SOR. You can find him on Instagram, Spaced Out Weekend, as well as on Facebook. On YouTube, our channel is Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can check out our website, spacedoutradio.com.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all connected but separated, misunderstood and so frustrated. A million armies of one have invaded, watching you and watching me. We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong. I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere. Watching me.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
And now, perched high in his captain's chair, way above the clouds, here's James Tyson.
Welcome, everybody, to Spaced Out Weekend. It is I, just like Dave said, James Tyson. I am broadcasting from the 13th floor of the Spaced Out Radio Network, located here in the paranormal portals of the lower left Canadian coast, or what you may call Cascadia, or I just call this part of Canada. Tonight with us, we have the fabulous, but controversial, lately anyway, Miss Nancy Talbot. Now, Nancy's the president of the BLT Research Team. No, that's not bacon, lettuce, and tomato. But I'm going to make you go to her website. Go to a BLT Research, actually Google BLT Research, or even Nancy Talbot. Holy cow. It'll take you into a world that you maybe not know much about, but there are people out there who are doing true scientific studies of the phenomena of crop circles. Now, the BLT Research Team is a nonprofit, tax-exempt U.S. corporation focused primarily on the crop circle phenomenon, specifically in the discovery and scientific documentation of multiple consistent plant and soil abnormalities found only in the unexplained crop formations. Now, these are the mechanically flattened ones, not those other ones. Now, this has been going on around the world and quite a lot in Great Britain, but we're going to talk about that. Now, since the early 2000s, BLT also reported detailed documentation of a variety of more metaphysical aspects related to the manifestation of crop formations, incidents relating to the Dutch medium Robert van der Broek. Unique 20-year ability. Now, he's got this ability to foretell new crop circles in his area and other constantly occurring and totally bizarre events, which increasingly indicate the involvement of a consciousness of some kind in both the circle phenomena and the other anomalous events. Physical substances and photographs and or video evidence obtained by some of these have been found to be highly anomalous by BLT professional scientific consultants. Now, BLT consulting scientists have also analyzed physical evidence recovered in a few UFO incidents, and in the 90s documented the presence of pure bovine hemoglobin in several unusual cattle deaths. Now, that's interesting. 3 scientific papers presenting BLT's crop circle plant and soil research results have been published in peer-reviewed scientific journals, the only peer-reviewed data available on the subject until 2014. Nancy is the co-author with W.C. Levengood of the 1999 paper Dispersion of Energies in Worldwide Crop Formations. She lectures internationally and represents BLT Research Team in TV shows, radio interviews, and conferences, and in crop circle documentary movies. Nancy also personally witnessed 2 crop circles forming, making her the only crop circle researcher who has actually visually seen crop formations occurring. Nancy, you have kind of been out there doing a lot of stuff and seeing a lot of things. Welcome back to Spaced Out Weekend.
Oh, hello and nice to see you.
Sort of.
Oh, well, to hear you.
Yeah, nice to see you. And then
I'm delighted to be back. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. This has been a bizarre couple of months for you. You posted a video of Robert van der Broek's a ball of light making a crop circle, and you posted that on Facebook. And tell us what happened after that.
Well, it's been a kind of a circus ride. On August the 10th, Robert had, as he often does when something unusual is getting ready to happen, either a crop circle that's forming somewhere in his area, or, he's going to get this feeling that he's got to take pictures and the images of people who are dead will appear, or creatures, or UFOs, or whatever. Anyhow, when that sort of feeling comes, if he is supposed to go out, if it's a crop circle event, he gets this strong sort of knowing that he's supposed to go out. And this was in the middle of the afternoon on August 10th. He had this instinct, which by now it's been going on since he was 15, so we're talking 20 years now. So he knows, he understands what was going to happen. And this time, he took his video camera. He is not technically very adept, but and doesn't use a video camera very often. Normally, just a point-and-shoot, a little digital camera. But he had the feeling he should take his video camera this time, so he did. And he went to an area. He lives in the southern part of Holland, in a very rural area. It's all farms and everything. And there is one area in particular outside of Hooven, which is where he was raised, fields where he saw, when he was 15, his first crop circle form, and has seen now many, many others. But it was that area that he was drawn to, that he felt he should go to. And it was a late afternoon in Holland, because it's very far north. The sun is still shining brightly, but it was relatively low on the horizon. And he went to a field where there was a crop circle that had occurred a couple weeks earlier, because he thought maybe he was supposed to go there. And he turned the camera on, panned the field where the crop circle was, and because he had this feeling he should, but he didn't see anything. And so he turned the camera off and walked a little bit to his left. This is a large field. And again, suddenly had this very strong presence, or a sense of a presence, to his left, and turned the camera back on and was aiming at right where he felt the energy, where he felt this energetic presence, which was right down at the crop itself. And suddenly, almost immediately after he turned the camera on, this light ball, first it was yellow and kind of sparkly, descended from the right above the frame down into the frame of the camera, and descended to the crop surface. It then kind of enlarges. The center of it gets quite big and white. It's still surrounded by this yellow sparkly stuff, but it goes down to the crop, then it moves slightly forward toward the camera, getting bigger again, and then shoots straight up in the air. Now, he had both of his hands holding the camera, and because the sun was behind him, you can see, if you watch the video, both of his hands the entire time, holding the video camera up. Now, because he has seen many of these formations with his eyes before, sometimes with light balls, but there are lots of other light phenomena that occur, not just light balls. But he knows from past experience that it was possible that he might see the actual plants open, flatten down. When it's a big circle and there's a light ball that's creating it, he has seen the plants actually going down with his eyes. So he kept the camera focused right on where the light ball had touched the crop. But nothing else happened, and so keeping the camera rolling, he walked down into that corner of the field, down the tram line, and there, sitting right where the light ball had touched, was a brand new tiny little, what he called a satellite circle. And it was so small that from his vantage point up on the road, you couldn't have seen the plants actually going down, but he knows that it wasn't there before in the field, and so it appears that this light ball did, in fact, make this little circle. And it's a perfect little one. It's absolutely beautiful. Well, on the 12th, I posted the information about the video with a link showing the video itself, and then another link to Robert on YouTube talking about the event, explaining, what had happened. And later that night, and it would have been by this time the 13th, early on the 13th here on the East Coast, I posted another piece of information which I thought was important. It kind of went with the light ball in a way. And this was about Lawrence Rockefeller. I can't remember whether we spoke about the X-ray diffraction study that Rockefeller funded for us some years ago. I don't remember whether we...
I don't think we talked too deeply in that, but it was... Mr. Rockefeller did put a lot of money into that research, and wasn't there a picture of him and Hillary Clinton?
Yes, there is a picture that circulates around of the two of them of the Rockefeller estate. The Lawrence Rockefeller we're talking about now, was quite different in many regards, I think, from many of his other family members, in that he was very interested, genuinely, I think, in the UFO phenomenon, and had, I think it's well known in the UFO community that he funded a number of projects. They call it the Rockefeller Initiative, I think, and various people that are involved in the UFO phenomenon have worked with, or he's given them money to do stuff, you know. But when he found out about the crop circles, he was also interested in that, and did eventually call me to find out about the science. And when I had explained to him what we had found so far, he offered then to fund another study himself. And eventually it ended up that what we decided upon was this X-ray diffraction study of clay minerals in the crop circle soils. It turned out to be an extremely important study, incredible results, because we found a change in the crystalline structure of these. They're very heat-sensitive clays. And Levengood, the Michigan biophysicist who did all of the early plant work, and he is the L in BLT, by the way. Mm-hmm. I'm the T, and John Burke was the B. That's where BLT came from. But Levengood, had been doing this plant work and had documented all of these changes in the plants. And so in this particular case, the X-ray diffraction study, Levengood, has proposed that a discharging plasma, which emits microwaves, these very unusual electrical pulses, and has strong magnetic fields associated with it, that this was the cause. This is his hypothesis, his original hypothesis, as to what's causing the circles. And so a geologist friend of mine who knew that some of these clay minerals were heat sensitive thought that, well, if the plants are affected by the heat, perhaps the clay minerals, these particular ones, will also be affected. And if you can find a change in them also, you see it would help support the basic hypothesis that has been published so far, this idea of a discharging plasma. And that's why Rockefeller was interested, I think, in doing that study. So what you have to know here is that the changes in clay minerals, this increase in the order or the crystalline structure of these clay minerals, changes in nature when you have a pressure, what they call geologic pressure, and literally imagine here mountains, pressing down on sediments or sedimentary rock over hundreds or even thousands of years. That's what changes the ordering of the crystalline structure. It becomes more ordered over time. This particular change has never been seen in surface soil before. However, in the X-ray diffraction study, all of our soil samples were surface samples, and we did in fact find the change, this increased crystalline structure in the clay minerals in the surface soils. When we got these results, I realized, I'm not a geologist, but I knew that there was something very profound here, and I was lucky enough to get a world authority on clay mineralogy. This is Dr. Robert C. Reynolds, Jr., who was the head of the Earth Sciences Department at Dartmouth College. And he literally is a world authority. He's now deceased, but an authority on clay mineralogy and the X-ray diffraction technique. So I went to him with our data and asked him if he would look at it. I wanted an expert opinion as to what we had found. And he saw it and immediately said, oh, no, that can't be. That never occurs in surface soils, because it requires geologic pressure and heat from the Earth's core. So he wanted to see all of the amounts, all of the original work that had been done by Dr. Iyengar on the West Coast out there in California. And so we sent them to Reynolds, who then at Dartmouth, using the X-ray diffraction machine at Dartmouth, he redid all the work. And he got the same results that Dr. Iyengar had gotten. So then he thought, well, the statistical work was maybe wrong. And so he redid all of that work also. The upshot of all this is that after, with him retesting everything, and asking us then to do a few other things, which we did, his results were exactly the same as ours, and that led him to state that an energy unknown to science had to have been involved in creating this particular crop circle. The reason, again, being that the plants were showing all of the changes we normally see, but if there had been geologic pressure, mountains pressing down, what would have happened to the plants? They would have been obliterated, right? Yeah. And if heat, he was saying the only other thing that might possibly cause the change in crystalline structure was exposure to 600 to 800 degrees Celsius heat for hours. He thought that might do it. He wasn't sure it would, but he thought it might. But obviously, if you had heat of that sort in that field, what would have happened to the plants then? They'd have been burned to a crisp, of course, and they weren't. And that's what led him to make this remark that the energies involved in creating, because we had all the plant changes that Levengood has been talking about for years, but we also had this change in the crystalline structure of the clays in the soils, and we're talking the top 1 inch of soil. And he knows, Reynolds knew as better than anybody else in the world, but all other geologists or clay mineralogists would say the same thing. This doesn't happen in surface soil. And yet it did, in the study circle. So when this work was all done, I sent a very detailed report back to Mr. Rockefeller, as I had agreed to, when I agreed to take the money in the first place. And Rockefeller made a copy of it, and he had also, shortly after that, asked me if I'd write something up about Robert van den Broek, the Dutch medium, whom I'd then been working with for some time, because I had told him a little bit about what was going on with Robert, and he was very interested. So I wrote a report about Robert also, and it turns out that Lawrence Rockefeller, made copies of these 2 reports and sent them to Dr. John Gibbons at the White House. Now, Gibbons had been he was the original, I think they called him the chief advisor to President Bill Clinton for the Office of Science and Technology at the White House.
Yes.
Later, he was no longer involved in that particular office, but he was working at the State Department, and I gather he must have been a friend of Lawrence Rockefeller's. At any rate, the final post that I made on what would have been the 13th, August 13th, was a picture of Robert with a crop circle next to him, in which it's pointing right at the center of it's pointing at an electric pylon, these cross-country, electric lines, because they're present near a lot of crop circles. And then I simply took a graphic from the White House Office of Science and Technology and put that beneath the picture, and then wrote this brief statement about how these reports, the X-ray diffraction study and the report about Robert, had been sent to Rockefeller, who had copied them and sent them to Dr. Gibbons at the White House. And my only remark about all of that was that to me then suggested that the government was interested in the circle phenomenon and also in the abilities of people like Robert. It seemed that if in fact these reports were in the archives of the U.S. Department of Science and Technology, that somebody in the government must find this of interest. And that's literally all I said. And apparently, within about 2 hours, Facebook closed my page down. It disappeared. Now, I didn't know it till the next day when I got up and, turned on the computer But I did and went to Facebook, and of course there was nothing there. And I saw this, sorry, this page is not available. So I wasn't sure, I'm thinking, what in the world, why I've been on Facebook for a year, I think it's about a year now, and I've had no problems of any sort. I've posted, I didn't imply anything unusual with this post. It's all fact. I mean, Lawrence Rockefeller did fund the XRD study. He did send a copy of it to Dr. Gibbons. He also sent a copy of the report about Robert to Dr. Gibbons, and Gibbons was the advisor to this Office of Science and Technology Policy. So there was nothing in there that was weird,
Just for the listener, Dr. Gibbons passed away last year, but was the American scientist, nuclear physicist, and internationally recognized expert in technologies for energy efficiency and energy resource conservation, and served as the assistant to the president for the Science, Technology, and director of the White House Office on Science, Technology, Science and Technology Policy under Bill Clinton.
It really was.
Yeah, and for our listener, again, if you go to BLTresearch.com, again, BLTresearch.com, on the home page, you'll see what Nancy's talking about, the deletion of her Facebook, and then under that is a video of a light bulb making a crop circle, the one that Robert took in Holland August 10th. And very, very interesting. So, carry on. What did you do when Facebook turfed you?
What's that, turfed me?
Turfed you. Turfed you.
Grounded, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not all that technically sophisticated myself, but I figured out, into Facebook.com, and I finally found a place where I could write a note and ask what had happened. And I did. I was like, hey, my Facebook page is gone. Why? What do I do to get it back? And I got a form letter back telling me that they could do nothing to help me without ID. Okay, it's rational. They want to make sure I'm me. So I sent them my driver's license. I thought, well, that's pretty good. They wanted a photo, of me. Now, on my driver's license, you know how driver's license photos are.
Oh, yeah.
You hate to have that out in public. But anyhow, I sent them the driver's license, and I got exactly the same form letter back and saying, no, they couldn't help me with an ID. So then I sent them my passport. And the photo in my passport looks more like the photo of me on my Facebook page, because in both of those I have short hair. But I get another form letter back. I'm sorry, we can't do anything to help you without proper ID. And I sent them finally my Comcast internet bill, because, again, it's my address and everything's right there. And eventually got, within an hour, get back the form letter again, same damn form letter every time, except this time it simply said that my case was closed. Bam. No explanation, no warning, absolutely zero information as to why it had disappeared. I don't know why it disappeared. So then I called Danny Sheehan, whom you may know because he's a lawyer, a very important lawyer, who has worked on, he's the guy that brought the Karen Silkwood case to court. He's done a number of, he supports the Indian, tribal Indians. He's done a number of big cases and was a very good friend of John Mack. If you know anything about the abduction phenomenon, John Mack was a Harvard-trained psychiatrist who did a lot of work with abductees or experiencers, as they often like to be called. And Danny Sheehan is also a Harvard guy. They knew each other and were friends. And I'd never met Sheehan, but I knew exactly who he was. And friends of mine helped me reach him. And I asked him if he could do anything, to restore the page. And he said, well, Facebook was a private company, and, it's free, and he didn't think that there was much of anything that could be done. Now, there's something I don't understand here at all. One of my Facebook friends then notified me that Facebook actually is traded on NASDAQ. Now, I don't know anything about the stock market. I simply have never had enough money to learn anything about it. But if you're traded publicly, isn't the NASDAQ a public trading, a thing where you trade stock, right?
Yeah.
And if people have stock in a company, doesn't that make it not private anymore?
I would think so, yes.
I don't know. As I said, I've never had enough money to invest in the stock market.
You know what? I think it may not be private. I think when you buy stock, you're just you become part of the private entity.
Oh.
You could look at it like that, too. Because all stockholders are owners of the company. Now, if everyone in the country owned one stock, now you could look at it.
All I know is that, she sent me a screenshot, this Facebook friend, showing the NASDAQ trade of Facebook for that day. So it's quite clear that that Facebook is traded on NASDAQ. Maybe it's traded on the other stock markets, too. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't understand that, and I called Sheehan's office back again and talked with this assistant of his who was helping me. And he'd have said, he reiterated that they didn't see any way that they could do anything themselves, about this. And so I kind of gave up. I thought, well, if Danny Sheehan can't do anything, I can't imagine who could. But then, absolutely mysteriously, I know that various people have contacted Facebook, some of my Facebook friends, asking about this, what has happened, why is this page missing, stuff like that. Unfortunately, a lot of people have thought I blocked them or that I unfriended them and have emailed me these awful emails. Why did you do this? Why did you unfriend me? Why did you block me? And I was frantic to let them know that I hadn't done this. But some of these people also apparently contacted Facebook directly, because not only was my Facebook page gone, every chat that I had with a private chat, how you can have the private messages that you send back and forth?
Yep.
All of those apparently have been deleted because people with whom I'd had those private chats went to their chat rooms, and they would see their own names and the questions they'd asked me, but my answers were gone, and even my name was gone in many cases, and it simply said Facebook user instead of my name. It was as if I had been wiped off the face of the earth, at least Facebook-wise.
Yeah.
There was just nothing. And I thought, is that normal when they close a Facebook page? Do they erase every message or interaction you've ever had with anybody? At any rate, I don't know that it happened with everybody, but a number of people have sent me screenshots showing me that this did happen with their, chats with me. So I had a very interesting conversation last night. Somebody out of the blue called, and I can't go into it any deeper, but that somebody knew somebody, and suddenly this morning my Facebook page is back. And the information about the Ball of Light video, which I thought was so important to get out, and the post about, the Rockefeller thing, they're right there. It's just, it's all sitting there now. And as far as I can tell, everything that was on the page before is now there again. So I'm working like crazy on getting an update written to put on Facebook. I'm so relieved because I just felt terrible.
Nancy, are all your messages, your back and forth messages, still in your little message part of Facebook?
I don't know that. Check that yet.
Okay.
I don't know.
Because that's interesting.
That'll be interesting to see. I know I have the names of these people who have done screenshots and let me see what had happened to their chats, and I can now check with them and see if my answers to their questions, my part of the conversation, has that been restored on their chats too?
I don't know. It's even just with Danny Sheehan sniffing around it. My God, any big corporation or the government might kind of think twice. He was involved in the Pentagon Papers, the Watergate break-in case, yes. Silkwood, Iran-Contra scandal. He's somebody you just kind of go, if I'm trying to do some cover-up, he's the guy you don't want sniffing around.
He would be the last person. I'd forgotten that. Yes, of course, it was the Pentagon Papers, the big thing, I think, that he did, and the Iran-Contra scandal, and the Karen Silkwood case, which was very important also. I mean, he's not somebody that you take lightly,
no.
I don't think.
No, Danny carries a pretty big hammer.
And on top of that, he's a really, really cool guy.
And he speaks publicly on UFOs and alien contact, too, visitation.
He does.
So, so he's an outside-the-box thinker. Briefly on I'm looking at BLTresearch.com. I'm looking at the still photo labeled August 10th, 2016, Holland video light bulb making a new crop circle. Now, I notice in the top right corner of that, there are big power lines. Big
Correct.
Power lines. Have you noticed in your research that these happen near areas where there's a large power, let's see, power lines or power plant?
Those cross-country power lines, the big ones, the high-power ones. We've been noticing, everybody's been noticing for years. I mean, for a long time it's been known. And in southern Holland, it just so you people know, in that area where Robert lives, they're all over the place. I mean, they really are all over the place. Not directly over every circle, and not directly over all the fields in which the circles occur there, but they're near. You can see them in most of the fields, not all, but in most of the fields where the crop circles around him occur. But not only there, around the rest of the world, here in the States, people have been noticing, for years that often, not only do you get the geometrically formed, geometric-looking crop formations, the ones with designs, you also find very frequently these completely randomly downed, often huge areas of the field flattened. And we know from doing the work, the plant work, because we've tested a number of those randomly downed areas, and also randomly downed areas that are found near a geometric design. If you look in the field report section of the BLT website, there's a big report there that illustrates this beautifully. In 2009, there were a number of very dramatic-looking crop circles in England, as there have been for the last 10, 15 years. But this thing, I think they call it the Phoenix. And I had a real good field worker that year in Holland, in England. And you never can get to them all, there are too many, but in that particular case, this thing called the Phoenix, which was as much of a design as you could ever ask for, and which one would tend to think it's highly likely that thing is man-made, because we know that a majority of the very elaborate looking things are, in fact, in England, man-made. And I would have thought that one was a candidate for it, except that the actual work, the plants and all, seemed to indicate that maybe it wasn't. But most interestingly, around the head, the top of this so-called Phoenix, there was an area of completely randomly down crop, just like we see in fields where there's nothing that's geometric, just where there's randomly down stuff. And he tested that too. And what we found was that the changes in the randomly down crop were greater, more severe, these plant changes that we look for, than what had occurred in the design itself. And the reason this matters is that if Levengood's idea that a discharging plasma is involved in the creation of crop circles, it's entirely likely and in fact reasonable to think that the randomly downed events, that you would not find in every instance of a discharging plasma, you wouldn't find necessarily a geometric design. Nature produces geometries all the time, although it doesn't produce things like this phoenix all the time. But, if you think of a sunflower, or you think of a snail shell, or a snowflake, or a million other things, you see that nature prefers design, actually. And so geometric designs by themselves are not really all that amazing. Pictorial designs, I would say yes, but geometric designs not necessarily, because nature produces geometry all the time. Mm-hmm. Everywhere. You look at a sunflower seed, you look at a nautilus shell, you look at snowflakes, whatever. You see geometry everywhere. But if, in fact, a discharging plasma is doing this, there are a number of designs that are known to be produced constantly in the laboratory. If you are testing plasma discharges, you will find certain basic designs, geometric-looking designs, that occur frequently. And in fact, the very designs that occur in the lab are the primary designs that were seen in the crop circle situation in the early years. The multiple circles and rings and things of that sort. Those are exactly the same designs that you see that are produced in laboratory laboratory experiments where you're testing plasma discharges. You get these same designs. Nature prefers design. It will, if given a chance, it produces design. Not necessarily pictorial designs, but basic geometric designs, yes. And most of the formations in the early years in England and elsewhere were, yes, in many cases geometric, not pictorial, not looking like, in this particular case, it looks like a bird. They called it the phoenix. That is not something you would expect to occur spontaneously by nature. Mm-hmm. But to see circles and rings and, many complex arrangements of circles and rings is absolutely normal in nature. And in fact, in plasma science, it's known that you can create these designs in the laboratory. In fact, the most frequently observed crop circle designs in the early years were exactly the same as what we found then in the fields, not just in England, but all over the world.
It's fascinating that it's not fascinating. It's disturbing. There's so many people out there faking these things, but nature does make some wonderful designs from snowflakes to crystals.
Or just think of the seed head of a sunflower for a second.
Yeah.
How complex and yet completely natural. And there have been a number of elaborate, very, very fascinating crop circles that mimic the same designs you see in nature elsewhere that are almost certainly genuine. They were the real crop formations. They were not man-made. Now, you get pictorial designs, like this phoenix in this case, and in many others. That's a stretch. Nature doesn't, by itself, tend to do that. Now, it doesn't mean, I suppose, that nature maybe can't, but generally speaking, we don't see designs like this particular one where this phoenix thing, you don't see stuff like that in nature spontaneously, usually. But the point I'm trying to make here simply is that geometric designs are extremely common. They're everywhere in nature. If you think of the seed head of a sunflower seed, sunflower, and just think of that for a second, how complex that is. Or a snail shell, or ice crystals, or snowflakes, or almost anything you think of. Nature produces design. It's a natural thing. And so seeing arrangements of circles and lines and whatever, even boxes, in a geometric situation is not necessarily otherworldly. I mean, nature produces these designs. I mean, if you think of a sunflower head and you look at the complex geometry involved in this Fibonacci spiral that occurs in the center of a sunflower seed, I mean, that's completely natural. You would never think that some weird, strange thing went on to make a sunflower. Or you think of snowflakes and the amazing array of designs. Nature prefers design and produces design constantly. We're so used to it, we don't even notice, except when it's something unusual like a crop circle. And then we immediately jump to the conclusion that if it's design, if it has a design, it must be man-made. Well, nature produces design, incredibly elaborate design, all the time. And we're just used to it, so we don't think about it. I mean, think of any flower head. Think of the branches of a tree. There are these. The design is everywhere in nature. It doesn't mean that the entire crop circle phenomenon is a natural phenomenon or a totally spontaneous natural phenomenon. The evidence so far indicates it can be. It may very well be. There isn't enough proof yet to absolutely say conclusively that the genuine crop circles, the ones that we test and find all of the changes in the plants and the soils, that all of those are, in fact, naturally occurring. There's some likelihood that there's something else going on here besides just nature, doing what it does. But the problem has arisen because most people are a lot of people drawn to this sort of thing. Highly imaginative is one way to put it, but I'm not quite sure what.
Or even to discredit.
The fact is that the hoaxing is done. The hoaxing it mimics all of this stuff, which then helps discredit the idea that there could be a genuine, new, highly anomalous phenomenon. Now, the laboratory work shows that that is the case. There's something very anomalous going on, and it appears to be spontaneously occurring. It appears to be occurring, as best we can tell, all over the world, in countries from everywhere that we've ever tested. We find the certain plant changes and soil changes which are consistent to exposure to a very unusual energy system. And the question then becomes, is this energy system naturally occurring, spontaneously occurring, or is it manipulated, generated? And nobody can 100% answer that question yet. And it appears that the hoaxing situation, which is absolutely rampant in the UK, is whoever's behind that, the hoaxing in England, is trying very hard to convince us, people around the world, that there is no genuine crop circle phenomenon. And that is disingenuous. There is a genuine crop circle phenomenon that is not yet understood or entirely explained, and which may involve consciousness of some sort, somebody's consciousness, something's consciousness. It may be a completely natural expression that we don't yet understand, but it's every bit as likely, and based on the work, the actual research, that in fact it's highly anomalous. It is not just nature functioning as it normally does.
Nancy, as we're coming up to the end of the first hour here, I don't want to leave the Facebook incident with asking you basically your opinion on why you think Facebook got rid of that page.
I wish I knew. I don't know a great deal about, I don't know why. All I know is that we posted this information about the office of this Dr. Gibbons, and the fact that Rockefeller had supported our work, and suddenly, it's gone.
Oh yeah, it's.
I'm thinking there's something strange here.
There are some strange things, and if you want to go into the different policies by different governments and things, you look at Dr. Gibbon was working under Bill Clinton. Mrs. Clinton is running for office. There's a great a number of photographs circulating with Hillary Clinton and Lawrence Rockefeller, and one of them, Hillary Clinton is carrying the book, Are We Alone? The Philosophical Implications of the Discovery of an Extraterrestrial Life. Now, if somebody in the White House or because you did use the term White House on Facebook.
Well, it's the picture there that I used underneath Robert's photo and one of the crop circles that have happened right near him in Holland. Underneath that, I used a graphic from the internet about the Office of Science and Technology Policy that has an image of the White House on it. I simply took it from the internet because it is that office where Dr. Gibbons, he was the director, I think, of that. And so I put it together. Maybe I don't know why the White House or any other government would be particularly concerned about the crop circles if they are a completely naturally occurring, not yet understood, not yet fully understood, but naturally occurring phenomenon. It would be what would be the reason to be upset, and why is there so much overwhelming hoaxing in the UK, where this was first, where we first all heard about this was from the early work that was done in England, because that's where the circles first started appearing in great numbers. Why would you hide this? Why would you be concerned about this at all, unless there's something unusual going on?
Or you've got one of the Clintons running for president and
that
not
never
wanting
occurred to me when I put this post up. Yes,
and not wanting her connection or their connection with Lawrence Rockefeller, this research, the White House coming out at this point in the election.
I'm so damn stupid. It never occurred to me.
And
I never thought about.
Because I know
I don't say anything in this about.
No, you don't. But they probably you've got to understand too. The White House is a tad sensitive, and I mean that through even just their metadata, and I'm sure any time somebody puts the words White House on their Facebook page, somebody in some bunker somewhere are going to get all the posts for the White House. Yeah. It's like using the word terrorism and White House in the same sentence on Facebook. You're going to get flagged. It's going to pop up on somebody's desk. Yeah. It's just what they do. There is a branch of security that does that, and they monitor.
They did not want the association to something as strange as this, but I have maintained. The BLT Research Team's work all along has focused on the factual information. We've never. We have been looking for a completely natural explanation for what's going on.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we'll find it, but that's what we've been focusing on. And I don't know, maybe it's a combination of Robert being involved in this case, because the events that occur around him are a step farther down the rabbit hole,
What's interesting, too, and I'll touch on this when we come back, or we still got a few minutes left before the break, but the photo, or the still photo of the light ball in the field at bltresearch.com reminds me a lot of something that occurred in the 1940s called a Foo Fighter. And the Foo Fighter was a round ball of energy that used to...
They're the planes. The fighters used to see them, right? Up in the sky.
And it was only the Allied fighters. And these things, no matter what they did to pull away from them, they wouldn't move. They'd be off like 10 feet out of the cockpit and just stay with them the whole time. Scare the bejiggers out of the guys.
I remember that, yes.
My dad, who was connected to Bomber Command in the RAF at the time, he heard about them but never saw them.
I actually do know somebody here in the States who, a military guy, who has seen them, who did see them in World War II. And I'm sure I've seen pictures of them, so I know they existed. That might be... Well, I don't know. I mean, we're trying to find the actual answer, and you look first at any natural situation or understanding you can come to. If it leads you away from the completely naturally occurring whatever, well, it leads you where it leads you. If you're serious in your work, you follow the factual information that you can derive.
Yeah.
And it has, in fact, in the crop circle phenomenon, taken us from just, a discharging plasma originating in the ionosphere, which is the basic theoretical construct that we have published in our published science, to someone like Robert Vandenbroek, whom
Nancy,
an amazing
hold that
array.
Thought. We're going to have to take a break for our commercials, and we're going to come back with more from Nancy Talbot. And please go to the website, bltresearch.com, and see what they're up to.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I would like to invite you to listen Monday through Friday right here on Spaced Out Radio. 3 hours a night of the top stories with the top guests, ranging topics from UFOs to ETs, ghosts to Sasquatch, and everything in between. We are live every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. So come on in and take a listen at spacedoutradio.com. Spaced Out Radio will take you out of this world.
Hi there, this is your psychic medium Joanna, and I would love it if you would join us every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. With host James Tyson, we'll bring you personal psychic messages on 2 mediums and a large. Questions about love, life, career changes. We would love it if you would come and join us live. Call in and listen in for the experience. Allow us to open the doors to your other side. 2 mediums and a large, heard only on Spaced Out Weekend at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for news beyond the mainstream news? Head to spacedoutradio.com and check out the SOR Spacewire. This is Spaced Out Radio's Eric Markham, News Director for the SOR Spacewire. Daily, I will bring you intriguing stories and outlandish reports from what's going on around the world. UFO sightings, paranormal activity, conspiracies, alternative health, and so much more. And if you have news, email me at news@spacedoutradio.com.
Attention Spaced Out Radio listeners. For only $5 a month, you can join Spaced Out Radio Space Travelers. Your membership at spacedoutradio.com will give you access to private fan area on the website, get you a monthly newsletter, draws for monthly swag, and a whole lot more. Sign up today to become a part of the Spaced Out Radio experience.
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Greetings and salutations, space travelers, from the Chronicles of the Unknown team.
What is Chronicles of the Unknown? I keep hearing about this thing.
It's a new paranormal reality TV show based right here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Follow our team as we uncover claims of activity on the Caribou Gold Rush Trail. You can also follow us here every third Monday, where 2 members of our team will be available to answer your questions. We'll give you some equipment updates and some of our experiences on the road, right here on Spaced Out Radio.
For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month, where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick Webster Small, and I'm here to bring you the Webster Phenomena every Saturday night, live at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. If you're looking for aliens and extraterrestrials, well, we've got them. Big and tall, short and small. You're bound to find what you're looking for. So join me on the Webster Phenomena right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Jolene with Rivulet Reiki and Readings, and I want you to relax. Let me help you chill out and get in touch with your body, mind, and soul. In this busy world, sometimes we need to let go, and this is where I can help. Visit my website, rivuletrndr.wix.com/rivuletrndr, or my Facebook page, Rivulet R&R, to set up an appointment for relaxation, Reiki, or readings, no matter where you are. It's time for you to make time for you.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Every month on Spaced Out Radio, we look into the deep and dark reports of cryptids roaming around the world with me, Rob Morphy from Cryptopia.us. I would love it if you would join me and host Dave Scott as we delve into the most arcane stories and reports regarding creatures of the unknown. My job is to hunt down the details and bring the evidence forward to you. These aren't your regular Bigfoot stories I'm talking about either. You can find out more about crypto history at spacedoutradio.com.
Tonight's edition of Spaced Out Weekend is brought to you by spacedoutradio.com, where you can now sign up to become a Space Traveler member. Now, for the final time tonight, here's Spaced Out Weekend's James Tyson.
Welcome back, everybody. We are with Nancy Talbot. Nancy is my expert in crop circles. Oh, she's all our expert in crop circles. The BLT Research Team Incorporated. Go to our website, bltresearch.com. And before the break, we were talking about all sorts of very, very cool things, from glowing balls of light to possibly interfering with the Clinton presidential campaign via Facebook. Way to go, Nancy. And some other connections to Rockefeller. But Nancy, just saying, she's forgot to mention some of the data or some of the eyewitness information that went along with one of her big, your fraction. What was that?
I can make this very quick. This did not happen until after the report had been, this is the XRD study, the change in the clay minerals, that Mr. Rockefeller had funded. When that study was completed, written up, and sent to him in great detail, literally every detail, and it wasn't until a good several months after he had been sent that report that I found out that there were at least 6, perhaps more, eyewitnesses, to 2 of whom were the landowners of the study circle, the X-ray diffraction study circle in Edmonton, Canada. Those 2 owners, plus 4 other people at least, were eyewitnesses to what they identified as UFOs playing tag directly over the study field just prior to that crop circle being formed. We didn't know that when we were doing all of the work, and we found these massive changes in the plants and the soils. I had no idea of it. I had no information about that at all. But in fact, there were at least 6 and perhaps more eyewitnesses completely unrelated to each other, 2 of whom were the actual owners of the field, who had observed these UFOs, what they called UFOs, lights in the shape of UFOs, playing tag directly over the field in which the crop circle was found by the farmer a couple of days later. So it appears that the idea that otherworldly or at least not explained phenomena are related to the crop circle phenomenon got a little bit of support there.
Okay. That makes a little bit, kind of more sense when it connects to that type of energy bouncing around over top of a field.
Well, they described them as UFOs, but, you've got 6 different people, and they're saying they're watching UFOs playing tag. I wasn't there, so I don't know whether what they really saw were light balls or UFOs or what, but they described them as UFOs playing tag.
Well, and if you go back to that whole Foo Fighter thing in the Second World War, if they had the term UFO or if they had the term flying saucer, they may have called them that back then.
Mm-hmm.
These balls of light.
They were light balls, weren't they?
Yeah,
that sort of paced the fighters, stayed right with them.
Yeah, or they would fly in formation behind the formation of fighters. There had been some studies done at the time. They thought they were or after the fact, I should say, the studies, but they thought, okay, maybe it's ice crystals and the light reflecting off of them, but they were worried that it was a German secret weapon. Well, these were also...
I remember that. They thought they called them Foo Fighters or something, didn't they?
The Foo Fighters, they found that they also saw them in Japan, and they were seen by German...
in Japan?
Yeah.
During the war in Japan.
Yeah, and they seen in the Pacific, I guess, with the U.S. fighters in the Pacific. But the Germans and the Japanese pilots used to see them too. So it wasn't really the secret weapon. Mind you, I haven't found a lot of data on the Axis powers seeing them. It seems to be more the Allies were seeing them going back to, I think the first reported ones were, what was it, the 415 Air Group or something, and they were called the effin' Foo Fighters back at the time, and some newspaper guy took the effin' part away. They saw them during the night in Belgium, Netherlands. They saw them during the day, and it was later in the war. So you've got to remember, this is like 1944. The first sightings occur around 1944. Well, the planes have been up flying for a long time before that.
That's true.
And nobody had seen them. So all of a sudden in 1944, all these things started to pop out. And there was... And this is where that weird kind of connection of paranormal kind of comes together. there was a group called the Vril Society, and a lady with a young psychic, or a group of psychics, were said to be channeling information on how to build a flying disc, and that information went to the Germans in the 30s, and those discs were built in the 40s. That part of the information was redacted from all the history of World War II, and it was funny at the time. Well, not funny, but the people that were told to, I want a day-to-day history of the Second World War. I want this documented. And it was the Rockefeller Foundation, funded by Mobil Oil, and Rockefeller went out and they did the day-to-day history, and they were alleged to have redacted all the information on the flying disc from the Vril Society. And the lady who was the psychic, like the top psychic, whose name escapes me right now, I think it was Marie, but I can't remember her last name, she disappears in 1945.
Oh my goodness!
The documents sounds like she and a couple of the other scientists who are working on the flying discs hopped on a flying disc and went to somewhere in the Taurus solar system, or Taurus constellation. But others have said she's moved to the U.S., changed her name, and married into the Rockefeller family. But who knows? These are all speculations by people who, half-ass write about stuff like this. So who knows? And here you have the Rockefellers connected to the Clintons, and you've got Hillary Clinton carrying this book that is basically by Paul Davies in regards to scientists and governments are actively searching for signs of life in the universe. Right. So, yeah, look what you stuck your foot into. It's amazing you're still alive. If this was a TV show, you would have had a black bag on your head and you'd be out in the back of a trunk of a SUV being taken to Roswell or something. Okay, getting back to ground ourselves, literally. Tell me and my listener, what is, if we wanted to go out and we have an alleged crop circle, and people are yelling and screaming that there's a crop circle. What is the easiest way for me as just a guy walking down the street to tell if that's real or not?
Okay, there are two visible, we're talking about the scientifically documented stuff now. There are two visible plant changes which you could very likely see if it's a genuine formation. The most well-documented, the most reliable, because it is the best documented, plant change concerns the apical node. The apical node, we're talking here about wheat, oats, barley, rye, grains generally. There are multiple of these sort of nodules, like knuckles, that go up the plant stem. And the top one, the first one beneath the seed head, and it's quite a distance if you're in wheat or barley or oats, it's a good foot or two below the seed head in mature crop. That's the first node, and it's called the apical node, and it is that node it's the youngest part of the stem. It formed the latest, It's the most elastic, the most pliable, and what you will find when you compare, if you're in a genuine circle, and let's say you take 10 plants randomly. I mean, we actually take hundreds when we're doing a series study. But for the visitor, as you're walking into the crop circle, you lean out of the trend line as far as you can and cut off at the base, say 10 plants of the standing crop as far away from the circle as possible. And you carry those into the formation with you, and then you get down on your hands and knees and you start comparing. And what you're looking at is the difference in length between the top, the first node beneath the seed head, called the apical node, you're looking at the difference in length of that compared to the same nodes on the flattened plants. And what we found it was one of the first discoveries we made, was that these top nodes, these apical nodes, were elongated. They were stretched abnormally. And statistically, the stretching was significant. Now, in order to determine this in most crop formations, the stretching, it can range anywhere from about this, we're talking about statistically significant stretching now, from say 45-50% up to the examples I have on the BLT website show you 172% node length change as compared to normal. If it's that big, if it's 100% or more, it's easily visible to the naked eye. But even if it's maybe 80% change, a stretching, it'll be visible. And all I do is, when I go into a crop circle to begin, I take a sample, say 10 plants, of a control crop from not right next to the road and not close to the tram line. I lean out as far as I can into the standing crop so I don't damage it, and take a handful, cut them off at the base, and then take them into the circle with me. And then I get down on my hands and knees and start comparing this top node, the apical node. I compare it to the top nodes in the downed plants, the ones that are flattened there in the circle. And what you find is, in the genuine crop formations, that top node, the apical node, and if you get there right away, soon after the circle has formed, the nodes will still be flat. They won't be curved. And you'll find a huge difference in the nodal length. It has been stretched. And what's happened is that we presume, this is microwave radiation that's doing this, the microwaves have very briefly and instantaneously hit the moisture that is collected in these nodes. It's stored in all of the nodes. There are usually 4 in the cereal crops. And there's moisture, quite a bit of moisture in those nodes. When the crop is young, there's a lot. It reduces, of course, as the crop matures. And when it's fully mature, this moisture is almost completely gone. But there are little reservoirs in the nodes. And so what's happened is that the heating agency, which we believe is microwave radiation, there's been an extremely intense but extraordinarily brief, literally a nanosecond burst of this microwave radiation, and it does exactly what would happen in your microwave oven. It turns the moisture inside that top node, the apical node, it turns it to steam. The steam then has to go somewhere. And the only thing it can do, it stretches that node as it escapes out of the node itself. And what you're left with once the steam has gone is an elongated or stretched top node. And if you take a bunch of those from the downed crop in a genuine circle, and you line them up next to a bunch of the controls, which are the plants that you've taken from as far away from the crop circle as possible, but not right next to the road. There are other things that affect the plants there. You want it from somewhere in the middle of the field. Those are your controls, and then the plants from inside the formation. And you can do this on your hands and knees, and you just go through the formation and hold the stems next to each other. You hold the apical nodes near each other and look. When you have a significant node elongation, it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of at least 45 to 50% increase in node length. It's barely visible at that change, at that degree. But on the website, I've shown one of the samples of 172% node length increase, and we're talking that top node, the apical node, first one beneath the seed head. And that's the one that is almost consistently, it's the most reliable indicator that what you're looking at is a real formation, because those nodes are massively stretched.
If our listener goes to the website, bltresearch.com, on the left you go down the menu and click on Plant Abnormalities, abnormalities, just like my tongue, and you'll see a good example of these things. I always call that part of the plant the knee, but it's like a little knuckle. And again, it's the second one or the first one you come to after the seed head going down, and you'll see how they bend.
And it's usually in mature crop, it's a foot or two below the seed head. I mean, depending on the crop and how mature it is. But it's that first node. It's a knuckle-like protuberance along the stem. And they're in wheat, for instance, I think there are 4 of them fairly consistently all the way down to the ground. It's that first one, the top one, the very first one beneath the seed head, which is usually a foot, maybe 2 feet below the seed head. And that node will be stretched sometimes so much that it's absolutely clear to the naked eye. You don't need a microscope or any measuring device. It's obvious.
Yeah.
And how it's happened is that the moisture, which is inside those nodes, the moisture that helps feed the developing plant, has been hit with, we believe, microwave radiation, which turns it instantly to steam, and steam, of course, expands. And in order for what happens is the steam has to escape, and it stretches the node in order to escape. And when it's gone, you're left with these elongated nodes.
Wow.
And they stay. I mean, they're pretty obvious. Once they're there, they're there.
If you had a very mature crop of, let's say, wheat, and it was a real crop circle phenomena, if you were to plant those wheat seeds, does it come up normally, or is it a little bit wonky?
Fascinatingly, no, they don't. When it's a genuine formation, depending on what stage, if these energies, now we believe in this case we're talking about microwave radiation, extremely brief nanosecond bursts of microwave radiation, if it hits the plant when the plants are immature, the seed never develops, or it develops to the point where, it's inadequate, and the seeds have essentially been sterilized. The plant it stops producing enough of the seed to make it viable. So you're sterilizing the plants if it occurs early on in the growth stage. But if it occurs later, once the seed head is pretty well developed, you will see, and farther down that same page, the plant abnormalities page on the BLT website, and I've got to change this because it's not done so good, but farther down on the page you will see that there are photos that show you that this node change can do many things, but the seeds then will become, they're dehydrated. I don't know where it is looking for it on the page. There it is, B. You have to look under 5B. And there's a photograph there of some corn seeds, corn kernels.
Yeah.
And you'll see that the control, the normal, is on the left-hand side. And on the right, you have 2 kernels that were taken from a crop circle plant that was from a genuine crop circle in corn. In this case, we're talking maize. And you can see they're smaller and dehydrated. All those funny little lines on the endosperm are because of the dehydration. And they look, and this is true not just in corn. We used corn because it's big enough so you can see the difference in the sizes. But in wheat or oats or barley or any of the other plants, same thing happens. As the seeds are so darn small, you can't really illustrate it. The seed will be smaller. It will be dehydrated. It looks like it's not going to do anything. But when it's been the genuine crop circle making energies, those dehydrated, shrunken, kind of miserable looking seeds grow at up to 5 times the rate of normal. They do it without light or water for long periods of time, and they produce greater yield than the controls.
Oh.
And so in this situation, when a crop circle has occurred, in mature crop, relatively mature, where that seed head is already pretty much formed, although the seeds look awful, they really don't look like they're going to do anything. When they're germinated, you find that they grow at up to 5 times the rate of normal, they produce greater yield, and they can do it without water or sunlight for long periods of time. Now, isn't that interesting?
That is rather interesting, yes.
I mean, people who know about this, the farmers who know about this, are absolutely thrilled, because if the seed grows, if the new plants grow at a different rate than normal, number one, all of the pests that feed on plants are outdistanced. The plant is growing faster than the pests which have evolved to feed on them. And so when a certain pest develops, the plant is already past the growth stage where that pest can bother it. And so you get a much healthier crop much faster because they grow so much faster than normal. And if you happen to have terrible weather in their growing season that year, you don't get enough sunlight or enough rain or something, the plants grow anyhow. The crop grows anyhow. And it produces this much greater yield than it would have had the crop circle not occurred. Now, we're talking in the crop circle area, by the way, not the entire field. Just where that crop circle has hit, those plants will do this.
Wow.
To us it seemed like an amazing discovery that there are certain energies. Now, we know from the BLT work that we have this microwave radiation is part of the energy system that's involved in creating crop circles, but so are these very unusual and very energetic electrical pulses and these strong magnetic fields. And Levengood and Burke, the L and the B in BLT, it's John Burke, William Levengood, and the T is my name, Nancy Talbot. Burke and Levengood, the scientists, discovered that you could replicate this effect. They discovered a number of things, but they did build a piece of equipment that delivers what they called ion avalanches. We're essentially talking here about electrical pulses to perfectly normal seed in the laboratory, then would be planted, and it would produce the same increased growth as we find in the genuine crop circle situations, the same increased growth rate, and the same increased yield. You get more seed, more viable seed from the plants that have been exposed to these energies. And what they are, and we know this from the laboratory work, are these very unusual electrical pulses. The microwave component is harmful, but in these instances where you get this massively changed node length situation, what has happened is that the harmful energy, the microwave radiation part, has been diminished, and these unusual electrical pulses have invigorated the seeds so that they then grow at this massively accelerated growth rate. That means none of the pests that have evolved over the years to feed on the plants at various stages, they're all outdistanced because the plant has grown, much faster than the pests have evolved to destroy them. And so you get a much greater yield from fewer plants.
What do you think? Here's me being my spiritual self. You've got energy appearing and creating a pattern that attracts us humans to it.
Yeah.
As a result, we humans, get in there and grab some seeds. Is that energy gifting us with a new type of seed, a new type of crop that would help
definitely... That's really interesting the way you put it, because what it suggested to Levengood, and as time, in the beginning, all the work, we assumed that this was a natural phenomenon that was simply not yet understood, that with enough work it would eventually be understood. That view changed as time went by. But in those first 8, 9, 10 years, when Levengood was doing all of his work, the plant work, the idea was that if we could understand the mechanism behind the circle phenomenon, we could help develop then seeds, produce seeds, and they built a piece of equipment that did do this, that would deliver these very unusual electrical pulses to perfectly normal seed, so that the result would be that humans could use this technology. They call it the MIR machine, from molecular impulse response. And if you go down on the plant abnormalities page to item number 7, you will see where it says laboratory replication of crop circle plant changes. And Levengood and Burke did, after quite a bit of work, figure out how to treat all kinds of seeds with these very unusual electrical pulses, which in every case, well, not in every case, but in many of the plants they worked with, and it was cotton and tomatoes and a whole variety of different plants that they used, they found that by exposing the seeds to very precise amounts of these electrical pulses, the same electrical pulses that are apparent in the crop circle making energy system, when you do that with normal seed in the lab, you end up with seeds that are kind of over-energized. They will do the same thing that we found in the crop circle seeds. They grow at up to 5 times the rate of normal. They do it without water or light for long periods of time, not entirely, of course, but you could have long droughts and long periods of not much sun, and the plants will still grow if they've been treated with this electrical pulse. They call it the MIR machine. It produced the same basic result that we got when we tested seeds, crop circle seeds, taken when the crop circles had formed late in the season. This is when the seed is fully formed and the crop circle then occurs. Those seeds from those plants in those crop circles do this exact same thing. They grow it up to 5 times the rate of normal. They do it without water or sunlight for long periods of time, and they still produce greater yield. In other words, you can feed more people longer with, if we understood, everybody was using this technology. So from the circle phenomenon, one positive thing that's been learned is how to alter the growth rate and development and productivity of our basic cereal crops, as well as, in this case, tomatoes and cotton, carrots. There are a bunch of other things that they were able to do this with also.
Is there any side research? Like, I know when you go into one of these investigations, you have an idea of, okay, we're going to say that this field is, it's wheat, and it's 10 miles from a road, it is this maturity. Do you have a little box you tick off to say if it's organic or genetically modified?
Well, given that most of the plant work was done during the 1990s and early 2000s, we did sample whenever we could crop formations that occurred in organic crop. Most of the crop at that time that was being planted commercially, not just in England, because we worked in, I think, ultimately 17 different countries, but around the world generally, the bulk of the crop being raised for market, for harvest, for commercial sales, was all genetically modified.
Yeah.
So we would, in some cases, we did find circles in organic crop, and in those situations it was fascinating because organic crop tends to grow irregularly. The plants don't grow at the same height. They grow variously until they're mature. And we discovered in the few cases in which crop circles were reported to us in organic crop that what happened was that the growth rate was synchronized in the organic crop. It was not altered in any other way. It was simply synchronized. so that the plants were all growing at exactly the same rate, when normally organic crop doesn't do that.
Okay.
The hybrid crops do. I mean, they're genetically changed to make them all grow at the same rate, because it's easier to harvest, it's easier to treat with pesticides if they're going to, whatever. But in organic crop, it tends to grow very irregularly. But in the cases that we worked on, which were not very many, in organic, where the circles had occurred in an organically planted field, it synchronized the growth 100%. It was amazing.
Oh, wow.
That's actually, we have that illustrated. I think it's item C. It's 5C on the plant abnormalities page. And you can see there that's synchronization of the growth in organically grown, I think it was wheat, yes.
Okay. 5C. When crop circles occur more in mature plant. Okay. That's interesting. I'm still got this thing in the back of my head because of Robert Vandenbroek. And am I saying his last name right? Vandenbroek. Yeah. He is a very sensitive human being. He sees what we...
He's unusual. I mean,
yeah, he's unusual.
Yes.
He can see the dead. He can see his spirit guides. He is that connected. And through him, this information is becoming more tactile. We'll be able to see a video of it happening. He can take you, for example, Nancy, out to a field and say, okay, wait here 10 minutes. And boom, it happens. He has communication with that energy on the other side. So if he knows that a crop circle is going to happen...
on the other side, it's not clear where the energy is, but he is aware of and can sense the energies involved in making crop circles intuitively, or
yes.
I'm not quite sure exactly what the right word is, but I mean, he's aware of their impending when a crop circle's getting ready to form anywhere near where he lives. He knows it. He can feel it. There's some change in his psyche that.
It's not that he's getting a communication saying, "Hey, Robert, we're going to go do one over here." It's just a feeling he gets.
He describes it. The word he uses with me for years has been angst, which, as I understand it, remember he's Dutch and I'm American, so Dutch and English. But it's best, and I don't understand Dutch. And he speaks pretty good English now. As I understand it, it's sort of an anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It's something impending. I mean, he feels that something is getting ready to happen, and it's not. I mean, it's an anxiety type feeling, as best I can understand.
Okay.
And he knows since this has been going on since he was very young, that what that means. Sometimes he will know, in fact now, what he knows, because he can see it in his head, he knows that it means a crop circle is coming. It doesn't always mean that. Sometimes it means that he should get his camera because a deceased person is going to try to communicate via the camera. Or there are other events that occur too. But in the crop circle situation, he will get, now, in the beginning, he would simply have the anxiety and an urge to go out to the fields. Now it's to the point where he will know in his head, somehow, what field, he almost always is right now, which field is it going to be in, and when to go, and he's impelled, really. It seems mostly like he can't not go now. And so he goes whenever possible with somebody else. He does not like to go alone because he doesn't want to be accused of making these things, you see. And mostly he has a field worker or somebody to help him drive him because he doesn't drive a car. And they go to whatever field he sees in his head. And sometimes they find the circle already formed. Occasionally they actually see it forming in front of them. he and whoever's with him. I've seen 2 occur in his presence, and I can absolutely 100% guarantee you not a single plank or board in sight, not one. There's something else going on. And all of the different things that people see, there have now been 7 or 8 people who have been with him, including me, who have been there in the field when the circle went down right in front of them. And the light phenomena that is associated differs in every case. The very first time it happened was with me in 2001, and what I saw were brilliant, highly energetic tubes of light that came shooting down into this field right behind his house. I was sleeping in the bedroom at the back of the house with the big balcony and floor, wide open doors, and I could see it right through the wide open doors, hitting the string bean field right smack behind the house. It was 85, 90 feet away. One of his field worker friends observed with him in a field not too long ago, circles opening up. They simply saw, in that case, flashes of light down low over the field, and a 5-circle arc opened up sort of around them. His friend Stan, who now lives in Spain, but was with him for years in Holland, one-time witness orangey-colored light balls. Started off with 1, and then the ones it split into 3, and that went to 6, lined up in a row. All this is on the page devoted to Robert's case, by the way. It's called Vandenbroek Case on the BLT website, and this story is posted there, this report, along with many others. I'm going to go to that page right now. But in this case, both he and Stan, Robert has the feeling as to where to go. They go wherever Robert feels they should go, what direction. And then he gets a feeling, when he should stop, when he should, and then there will either be a crop circle there when they get there, or in this case with Stan, they got off the bike and walked into the field a little bit, and this orangey kind of light ball pops in over the field right in front of them. It splits into 3, then it splits into 6, and then they start rotating these light balls very fast, so fast that all you see is a ring, in this case of orange light. Boom, it drops down to the crop right in front of them and makes a new crop formation. On another occasion with Stan, probably the eeriest one that's happened so far, this is a report from September 2014, and you'll see a drawing if you're on the Vandenbroek case page. You scroll down beneath my introduction to all the reports, and there's a picture, looks kind of like a ghost, just on white paper, with a ghost with 3 eyes. And it's the date next to it is September 2014. When you open that report, it describes this first light ball experience with Stan, the orange light ball that turned into 6, and a ring, and whatever. And then the second incident, when he was again with Robert, and Robert had the feeling that something was getting ready to happen, and he knew what field to go to, and they went. And in this case, they observed, both of them did, a UFO. Well, a UFO was what looks to them what they called a UFO over one corner of the field. They knew enough to just, stop and watch. They both saw this clearly. Stan had a video camera with him this time and tried to videotape this, but the video got zapped and it wouldn't work, even though it was fully charged. So he puts the camera down and they watch as some light balls, what they described as light balls, drop down from the UFO, which was just hovering there, not very far in front of them, but over the field. And then these 2 3-eyed creatures, twice as tall as they were, Robert's 6 feet, so at least 12 feet tall, one of them standing on either side, one next to Stan and one next to Robert, and they both had the feeling that these were guardians of some kind, protecting the field during this event, and maybe protecting them. They were not afraid. Anyhow, these tall, three-eyed things were standing, one on either side of the two guys who were standing at the little entrance to the field, as the light balls came down from what they would call a UFO, very metallic looking, and the light balls came down to the field right in front of them and made this long pictogram, then returned back up to the UFO, which I can't remember whether it poofed out in this case or just went flying off in the air. But I remember, I can't remember, there's so many things anymore, every single detail. But the report is there clearly, and it made a beautiful long pictogram in quite tall grasses, which there are many pictures of there, and I illustrated this as best I could to show you where they were standing. There's a car there. They weren't in a car, actually. They were on Robert's motorbike, because Robert doesn't drive a car, but that's what the picture I had happened to have a car in it. But you can see the formation that was then created right in front of their eyes. Now, in that case, a UFO, or what we only know to call a UFO, for lack of any better term, and two apparent creatures were involved in the creation of that formation. Sometimes it's a light phenomena that you see. In the second one that I saw in 2006, there was no light phenomena at all. There was a dark spiraling motion not more than 30 feet away from where Robert and I were standing on a dike outside of Hooven in this special field area. And this black spiraling, I don't know what, went down right smack into the ground right where we had just been. We'd been in that field not, 30 seconds before. And there had been no crop circle then, but after this black spiral thing went down into the ground, right where we had just been, there then was a large circle with four of these outliers, kind of a quintux,
Wow.
So it appears that there's a variety of visual. It's not clear that all circles are created by the same energy system, or if they are, that energy system can manifest itself in various ways. In this particular report, we have them manifesting once as light balls, simply light balls, orange-colored, and in the second incident as an actual, what we would call a UFO, with these two enormous creatures standing one on either side of Robert and Stan as they watched the UFO drop these sort of metallic-looking balls down to the crop surface, which actually flattened all the circles in this long pictogram.
That's fascinating with him. I don't think I'd ever hang around with Robert.
The only person in the world, to the best of our knowledge, around whom all this happens, and perhaps you would like to have him on sometime to talk to you a little bit about whatever it is you want him to tell you about.
Oh,
because I've been with him for so many years, and I've seen so much of this myself personally. I know this guy Stan very well, and I know that this is factual. Now, exactly what it means, ultimately, I'm not positive. And people have to take the information and do what they want to do with it at this point.
Yeah, I look at, I go on your website, bltresearch.com. I look at Robert's case, and a number of the photographs he's taken of things that appear to be anything from the Virgin Mary to creatures and the typical alien looking, big almond eyes, to his spirit guide, Doya. It's amazing what this guy is coming into with Robert is coming into contact with, which again, I get this thing in my head that these energies are kind of making these big displays, so it attracts our attention and our curiosity, and it's telling us, if you take these seeds, this is what's going to happen. And by the way, we're out here. Yeah.
I think you're exactly right, and it's a slow process of getting your head or wrapping your head around stuff like this because it's so out there.
Well,
but
I do have somebody coming on in October. She's a good friend of the show. She's on every second Sunday and a very connected medium. And last time she was on, I think it was on 9/11. We had two spirits who passed in the North Tower come through.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very, very spooky. It just about had me in tears at one point.
I bet it was quite moving. Yes.
Yeah, we had the cousin of the fellow who passed ask, just say if anyone could come through, and sure enough, his cousin who passed came through. And then his cousin introduced a woman standing behind him and brought her forward, and she was also in his office. It was very, very touching. But Joanna, the medium, we have a show coming up in October where we will go through things like this and talk about anything from Bigfoot to crop circles, and if she, through her guides, can tell us what their meaning is. So,
well,
I'll let you know.
I've got one whole report on, again, the Vandenbroek case page.
Yeah.
This is where I am on the BLT website right now. It's down. You have to scroll down a bit until you see a photograph of a little girl with a kerchief around her head with red flowers on it. It's dated November 2010, and the title is Robert Vandenbroek Apparition Photos. And this entire report, which is 6 parts long, has hundreds of photos that he has taken, most of these with my camera, because these are things I witnessed. I try on my page to focus as much as I can on things that I have personally witnessed. So, I'm telling exactly what I saw along with whatever Robert is saying to beef it up as much because it's so outrageous. But in this one, it includes, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of images here of deceased people whom Robert has photographed. And we find it's very interesting in his case that in some of these instances, we can find published images of the same people somewhere else, not anywhere Robert would have access to usually. And I had a lot of these tested because the debunkers immediately say, well, Robert is just getting a book or something where there's pictures, he's cutting it down, he's holding it in front of the lens, he's doing some very sophisticated something or other with the camera. Well, Robert can't do anything with the camera except point and shoot. He doesn't know how to do any of this stuff, which you wouldn't know if you don't know him. But I do, and I've watched him take these photos myself. And so I had a guy from MIT who's a photo analyst examine a whole batch of these photographs. And by the way, this was long before Robert had a computer. He had no computer until 2006, the summer, July 4th, actually, of 2006. These photos here, many of them come from years before that. And we did an analysis of the images. In some cases, we did find an original source, a book or something, in which the image appears. But
is that the exact image?
I beg your pardon?
Is it the exact identical image?
Well, that's where I'm going.
Okay.
It looks like it is. When you find it, you think, oh, that's it. He's taken that picture. But what the MIT guy did, the photo analyst, was he took a whole bunch of these. And remember, in these reports, I only post a tiny percentage. Robert may take 40, 50, 60 shots at the same time. And I can't put them all in. It's just too much. So I picked some representative ones. And this guy worked on a certain number. In this case, I'm looking at the soldier photos. And what he found consistently in every case that he worked on was that although it appears to be the same individual at approximately the same time, dressed in the same manner, Robert's actual photos do not match the images in the source, the book or wherever we found the picture that we think is where it came from. And this happens over and over. If you go through this apparition photos report, you will see this applied to the soldiers that appeared in one year. Then the mudman from New Guinea, there were a whole batch of those photos. And again, what the guy does, the analyst, he draws an outline around the source. Let's say we found a book, and he'll blow it up, and then he draws an outline around the image. Then he places registration dots, they're little green dots, on key things, like eyes or the crook of an arm or something that stands out. And then he reduces the size of that to fit exactly the size of Robert's photo and superimposes the image, the outline, and these dots. And what you find over and over and over is that the photos that Robert has actually taken with his camera do not match. They are not an exact match. Some of them are way off. It's apparently the same being or creature or person, but it is not the same photo. And that's the point, is to show that whatever this is, it's going on. The source, in some cases, we are pretty sure that we have found the source, and Robert eventually became calling these borrowed images when we can find the source. But when you take the source and then do all this work, you find that the photographic images that come on Robert's camera are not exactly the same. And this in particular, in part 3 of this report, there were the first cases when I was there personally, when I saw this happen. Robert had told me on the phone over the winter that this was happening, but I had never seen it happen. And so I waited until I had actually seen it happen myself before I wrote a report about it. And in part 3, it shows you the first time I saw it. And Robert and I he had just learned that year, that winter, I guess, that he could bend metal by simply pointing his finger at it, And I'm not talking thin, light, I'm talking heavy metal. And he was intrigued with this. His mother had some cutlery that was extremely, very strong. I mean, you couldn't bend it. No way you could bend it with your hands. And he had discovered he could just point his finger at it and make it bend. And so I was in his little office with him, photographing him doing this, because back then that's how we did everything, because I was trying to demonstrate it for everybody. And as we were working, there came this very quiet knock, knock, knock on the door that goes to the outside of his office. And I heard it, but it was so gentle that I would never have thought to stop what I was doing. But Robert looked up from his side of the desk, and he said, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Yes." And then I knew something was getting ready to happen. He came around from his side of the desk. There were no cameras in this room, nothing, no computer, nothing, only my camera, my little point and shoot. And he asked me if he could use it. And I said, "Okay." And I handed it to him. And I stood with my head literally touching his as he aimed it toward the door where the knock, knock, knock had happened. So I could see the LED screen because he's holding the camera out in front of his face. Mm-hmm. He took a picture, and the first photograph you'll see on page 3, part 3 of this apparition photos report is what came on that camera. I jumped like I had been shot because I saw the face. And with my eyes, I could see in front of the camera, and there was nothing there. But this face was on that LED screen. And I was like, oh, my God. And Robert then said, this is someone who has passed over, and he was lost or confused or something. He needed help. And Robert needed to help him. Exactly what he does, I can't tell you, but he needed to help him. And so he then, with my camera, continued to take photos. The man's face appears in a number of distorted ways. Then for a while it's just the door closed. Then the man's face appears again, sometimes very clear, sometimes not very clear, it depends. And then the man, Robert is sending this guy energy, he's doing whatever it is he does, and then the man's face disappears, and a strange figure with what looks like a white arm and like a brown belt around its waist.
Mm-hmm.
Then it appears. The rest, there are a whole bunch more of those photos, and they're in another report, which I give you the link to, that I put up first, because I didn't want to put the man's face up at first, because we didn't know who it was. We still don't know who it is. But immediately after that, I followed with the business of the photos that Robert took of my brother, who had died in 2007. And Robert had never met him and didn't know anything about him. His name was Bill. But I already had my tickets. I wouldn't have gone that year, but I had my tickets already, so I went. And Robert had told me on the phone that he thought my brother was going to appear on my camera that year when I arrived. And I told him, no, I don't want that. I was too sad, I wasn't ready for it. And he told me, I think he was trying to get me ready for it, because he knew already it was going to happen. And when I arrived in Holland 2 months after Bill died, the first night I was too tired, we didn't go out. But the very next day we went out into the fields where a lot of crop circles had happened in the middle of the day. And we walked into this field. It was a place called Woodenhead in English. And Robert said to me, your brother's here, can I have the camera? And it's kept in a locked case. It has brand new batteries in it every morning. Everything's brand new card. And I number it in my own handwriting and the date and everything. And I thought, oh my gosh, am I ready for this? I didn't feel ready at all. But I gave Robert the camera, and I stood with him in this field at Woodenhead, as in broad daylight, he then took 50 photos of my brother, whom it makes me even have tears now, whom Robert had never met, had never even seen a photo of. And yet there was Bill's face over and over and over and over on my camera, which, I was watching, I was standing right with Robert as he did it. And I saw the images immediately. And we didn't have a laptop with us. We didn't have anything with us. And there was Bill.
Oh, it's fascinating.
These things, I don't understand them exactly, but that they are real, there is no doubt. I've seen it now so many times. But when it's your own relative, it's someone you grew up with, your own family, and he's never met Robert. He didn't even know about Robert. My brother lived down in the middle of the South Pacific on an island down there, and had never met, hadn't even been in the States, I don't think, in 10 years.
And the photograph of you and your brother back in '86, was that public anywhere? Was it on any website or anything?
No. That photograph was when he'd come back for, I don't know why, he was living in the South Pacific then, but he'd come back to Cambridge for some reason. I know what it was. It was my parents' 50th anniversary.
Okay.
And he was back for that. And that's one of the shots. We had a bunch of shots taken of the kids. There are 4 of us, and that just happens to be one of 2 of us, for my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. And he was here for that event and then went back to the South Pacific where his home was. But Robert didn't, I don't even know, he may have known that I had another brother, because I have 2 brothers, but we'd never talked, about it. And he'd never seen a photo of, he didn't have the faintest idea what Bill looked like, except that in his head he can sort of go where he wants. So maybe he did have some idea, but he didn't have it from any photo. And yet, the image that appeared on the camera, it's Bill, it's my brother, but my brother younger than he was when he died.
Okay, so in one of the paragraphs below that picture, it says the photo above, in which Bill is 46 years old, is the only photo of him that Robert has ever seen.
Yeah,
so
which he saw afterwards.
Afterwards, okay, not beforehand.
No.
Interesting.
I showed him, after this happened, but Robert had never. And Bill was not in our conversation, because my brother literally lived in the South Pacific for the last 20 or 25 years of his life. Was rarely in the States. Almost never in the States. and not at all into this kind of thing. I mean, I don't believe that on his visits here, maybe I mentioned Robert to him, I don't know, but it was not an interest of my brother, of Bill's, and so it's unlikely that I spoke about Robert or what I was, maybe I did, I don't remember. But Bill wasn't into this sort of thing at all, and as far as I know, knew almost nothing, if anything at all, about the work that I was doing with Robert. And I think it's interesting, the photos that I show beneath the one of me and Bill, that was one of the photos that we took from my parents' anniversary, We had a professional photographer take a bunch of shots of the kids. And underneath that, there's Bill. He had cancer. And as he was dying, I went down to see him along with my brother and sister. And these photos are ones I took, the ones with the light balls and the light stripes, were ones that I took of Bill that last time I saw him before he died.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, clearly, Robert is in touch with another aspect of reality, meaning, when I say reality, I think of life is part of our reality. There's a lot more. And Robert is clearly in touch with aspects of reality that most of us have very little, if any, contact with. And he can get photographs of the deceased. He does it all the time, as well as a huge range of utterly crazy, bizarre-looking creatures or beings or life forms. And he can communicate to some extent, apparently, with many of these beings also.
Wow. No,
it's really
absolutely
an
fascinating.
Astounding thing.
Yeah. Oh, crazy. And at that, being that we're now 15 minutes over time,
oh dear,
I'm going to send you packing, young lady. And I want you to go lock your door, because what the heck, you could actually have the NSA come to take you away for what you've been doing.
Like, you think locking the door is going to stop that?
No, they'll just beam you out. They've already got it all figured out. They're going to beam you out. For anyone who also wants to know a little bit more about Robert, you can go to his website, Robert Vandenbroeke, Broeke.
K-E, Broeke, kind of how
Robert
you say it.
Vandenbroeke.com. And it shows a little bit about him, and some of these photos under a heading Borrowed Images. So, borrowed being his mind, I guess,
from reality.
From reality. It's
yeah.
And some of his life events. It's amazing.
There are a huge number of reports about the various events in great detail on the BLT page that is devoted to Robert's case. And it's still going. I mean, the events, if anything, amp up. So I don't know where it will eventually go. And with maybe we can get Robert on your show, too.
Yeah.
One of these days.
That would be interesting. Because I remember last time you and I talked, Robert's English wasn't that great, but that was over a year ago, so he's had a lot of more practice.
Well, his English isn't perfect, but it's improving, and it's a heck of a lot better than my Dutch.
Yeah, it's better than my Dutch, too.
Yes. Well,
because I don't know
thank
any.
you so much for having me on again. I really am grateful.
Oh, and thank you for coming on. This whole Facebook thing that all of a sudden you got disappeared was quite interesting with young Hillary running for president.
Kind of scared me.
All right, Hillary's running for president. She's connecting Rockefeller to Hillary and Bill, and we're going to look into this, and don't tell her.
I'm not saying a word, trust me.
Nope. You're out of here. Well, thanks very much again. And for the listener, please go check the website out, bltresearch.com. And if you ever thought a crop circle was it's all a hoax. Well, there's an awful lot of hoaxes out there, as Nancy has told us, but there are scientific studies done on these, and, read a couple of pages of that website and you'll be able to figure it out yourself. Again, and if you ever bump into one, let them know. And
do call, yes. If you're in the States, you find one, or anywhere, let me know.
And I sent you a video.
BLTresearch.com.
And I sent you a video, Nancy, of a crop circle the night before a crop circle in Salinas, California. Guy was driving along and all these flicking green lights in the field. And the next day there was a big crop circle.
And guess what?
It was fake.
Oh, of course. I wrote that up. If you go to... Where the heck did I put it? It's on the reports page.
Okay.
That's written up in great detail.
Oh, that was a cool one. That was well faked.
Eyewitness reports. It's on the eyewitness reports page, I think.
Okay.
Let me look. No, it isn't. Where the heck did I put it? It's written up in great detail somewhere on this darn website. It's gotten so big I can't. Oh, I published papers. Wait a sec. Give me just a sec here.
Oh, I'll give you 9 seconds.
Not there. I don't know where the heck.
We'll find it, Nancy. Again, thank you very much for coming out. And for my listener out there, please keep an open mind and send your crop circles to Nancy.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is our last goodbye. Young hearts will stop. Torn souls set free. All that we have is now. If this is what you want, then come to me.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey! Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing and they go. What are those voices? Look up for the mountain. Because somebody hide, somebody better hide on through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. We are after you, dead or alive. We are out to get you, dead or alive. And forget yourself. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after now. On through the hill, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. Dead or alive, we are out to get you, dead or alive. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after. No!
I see dead people.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Dave's not here!